to happen that has not happened for an age. Entmoot.
Hello and welcome to Entmoot Live. It's me, Harry, back on your screens on YouTube for the first time in February. Last time we did this was the review of the year, which was with Ben in January, mid-January, maybe the first week of January. I forget. Either way, it's all happening tonight. We've got a very exciting show. You can even see my blanket on the radiator drying in the background. It's all very exciting. I know a few of you are already getting ready. Nathan's in, Gaetan's in. Welcome both of you. I'll let everyone get in the studio because it's going to be an exciting one. We're going to be talking all about conversions and various different display board ideas and all these sorts of things. So hopefully you're settling in. Getting yourself warm and ready for what is likely to be a fun evening, because we have a very, very special guest coming on the show tonight. The show on the YouTube stream tonight. It's the one, the only Matt Davies. Welcome along, Matt. How are you doing?
Hi guys, it's great to be with you. It's great to be with you, Harry.
Yeah, it's good to have you on, and thanks very much for joining in the stream. This is like the sort of second or third. I can't think how many I've actually done of these streams, but other than the 24-hour one, which was very long. But it's good fun to have you here.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, to those who don't know who you are, I mean, it's probably worth introducing you a little bit. I mean, we can see a little bit on your shirt there, maybe a clue as to who you are. But I mentioned conversions, I mentioned display boards already. Tell me a bit about you and your I suppose your hobby history, Matt. I mean, where did it all begin?
Okay, so as a child, me and my brother grew up on the Lord of the Rings tapes. So like the BBC dramatised production. Actually got the. I don't know if any of you ever got any of these. These were a collection I bought a few years later, because the original ones we listened to were an old recorded set that my dad put together when he was younger, when they first came out. So they had like adverts before and things like that. So we grew up on those, and obviously when the films came out, we were really into Lord of the Rings. But we didn't get into the game until I think it was about 2002. So around the sort of Two Towers side of things. And the first models we got bought were the Legolas and Gimli mounted on horse. So that was quite an interesting start to the game. Oh, that's a great
start.
Yeah, we had some friends in school who were into it, and I think we went over to their house one day and we saw this Sauron on the board with loads of orcs with like funny painted eyes. But it was just like the scale of it, and just being really into Lord of the Rings, it really kind of kick-started that want to do something similar and to be creative in that sort of aspect. So it stemmed from that, really.
That's really cool. I mean, those, I've never listened to those audio books, audio dramas either. And are they the ones with Ian Holm as Frodo? Is that right?
Yes, yeah, they're really, really good, and they've dated a little bit, but in terms of re-listenability, they're great to listen to.
I'm definitely going to have to delve into the archives. I'm fortunate in that I can get access to the BBC's archives. So even if they're not for sale anymore, I might be able to track them down somehow and have a listen. But they sound amazing. And Ian Holm as Frodo. And I mean, are they long? Are they like audio dramas, or are they audio books?
So it's an audio dramatization. So there's a lot that's missing, but there's also, I think they adapted the books. But I think there's 13 cassettes in here, and each one I think was about an hour. I think it was about 13 hours worth of listening. So we've just got so many memories of over the summer holidays. We'd put it on while we're eating tea or something like that. We do little sections like that over the summer. But yeah, with my brother and my dad was really into Lord of the Rings as well. So it sort of stemmed from that, but really treasured memories.
Absolutely, I can imagine. And as you say, your dad and your brother as well. So it was a whole family kind of vibe then.
Yeah, and we'd always go to Scotland in the summer as well. So being surrounded by this terrain, it could be Tolkien-ish. We'd go to many streams, rivers, and caves and mountains that could all have been like the Lonely Mountain or things like that. It was just surrounded by this terrain.
Oh, amazing, and we'll get into all the conversions and all those sorts of things. But the terrain, and I know you're a converter extraordinaire or sculptor, and well, I guess those sorts of things. Did you get inspired that early on to build things and make like terrain pieces?
Yes, thinking back, me and my brother would do a lot of different things. Like I think we built an elven house once out of cardboard, and it's hard thinking back now because the hobby catalogue is so big, and some of it we don't have anymore. Whether we got rid of it or whether it's just stuff still up my parents' loft in some box somewhere. But yeah, I'd always have elements of conversions throughout the start, whether that's been sticking a stick with a banner on a model, or swapping an arm, or like you're going to show perhaps in a bit, the first conversions that we ended up doing. But obviously it was a very strange and sort of fresh start to something in terms of hobby wise, there was a lot of varied outcomes of what the stuff looks like, and it's really good looking back on that stuff for now, and just seeing how far I've come and how far we the progress you can make. But we've always been really creative people. I've always been into making stuff. I was one of those people who would take apart things to see how they work, and my job now is as an engineer and design engineer as my day job. So that creativity has gone throughout my life, really. Whether it's us making swords or sort of Minas Tirith armor to play in the woods when we were younger. We were blessed to live in an area that had a wooded area just right behind our house, and we'd always be going around there in the weekends and just, I guess, playing Lord of the Rings or as an early age.
Well, and so you say 2002 was when you started playing the game itself.
Yes. Yeah.
Was it proper gaming? I mean, I don't know how old you are, how old you were then, but were you playing the rules proper, or did you have like your own kind of family vibe? Kind of almost hodgepodge of the rules. So now everyone encounters the game and plays it differently when they start.
It's really hard thinking back now because I can't imagine that we did. I think we played an element of the rules, but I can't imagine that it was anything specifically rules based. I remember we did Battle Companies for a bit, so we really enjoyed that when that came out, making little characters. But I don't think we ever stuck to the rules per se. And obviously, with the day and age, you didn't have the groups like the Great British Hobbit League and Facebook pages, and so everything was very much your own little world, your own. This was yours, and yeah, at the time, that was really interesting.
I was just going to say, I remember I never really played the game until only a few years ago, actually. But I do remember distinctly me and a friend who lived nearby literally moving them around on tables and like bashing them into each other and all that, because we were only like 8 years old or something like that. But either way, it was an exciting time to be reminiscing about as well. So So that's your hobby beginnings, but we'll come on to everything about your hobby now, I suppose, your hobby present in a few minutes' time. But I just want to first of all, I'm going to get into the chat in a second to welcome people in. So if you're listening, if you're watching, if you've got paints, if you've got models on, and let me know, drop a comment on, tell me what you're working on, what are you up to, what are you looking forward to, what are you going to ask, if you've got questions for Matt or myself, absolutely drop them in the comments there, and we'll deal with them in a minute. I want to talk a bit first, because I kind of start the program a little bit about kind of the last month or so of things. So I do a bit of newsy updates. So I just want to, actually this month's a bit sort of sparse in terms of new releases, although there's been teasers at the start of January. We kind of discussed them, but I wanted to ask you a bit about the Middle-earth Made to Order that happened over the last few weeks and months. And is that something that you've jumped in on? And if so, what did you get? I mean, this is one of the things that happened in the 16th of January. So I think that was just after we came. But I mean, that's there's some cool models in there. Did you
impressive image? I actually didn't this time, which was first for me, really. I've made it my quest a little bit this year to finish projects of old, should we say, and stick to projects and not get too caught away with shiny new stuff, because
it's hard to commit, isn't it?
It is.
I'm guilty because every single time I say I'm not going to buy all of the things that I need, and then I end up getting it's almost a panic on the day of the things. I always think, but what if they're not going to come back? What if what if they're not going to be released again, and all that sort of stuff? And I go, so then I end up with loads of things like I don't know, what did I get? I got the orc captains, which are very nice. They're very nice.
I've got them.
And and I got I got the Gildor, which I'll just reveal because where is he? There he is. This is typical kind of hobby content. There's my Gildor, which I've I can't work out.
I think I remember seeing him on the battle streams.
Yeah, it's a lovely, lovely model, and I've waited for ages. Siri's just started answering questions for me. I've waited for ages to get that model, and it's really nice. And now I've got 2 Glorfindels, and so very exciting. But either way, I just wanted to reflect on that. But actually, it's been very sparse in terms of Middle Earth news these last few weeks. We had some little articles, a little FAQ, which was quite nice. I don't know whether you sort of follow the FAQ business an awful lot, Max. I know you're not necessarily a gamer. You're kind of more into the hobby side of things. But did you have a glance through the FAQs and did you find anything interesting, I suppose?
So I listened to the podcast that covered the FAQs, and I actually was really busy that weekend or that period of time when it came out. So I didn't get a lot of the chatter of it, which I missed out all that sort of thing, side of things, which I wasn't too sad about really, because I think there was a lot of negativity around it. However, there were a couple of there was a couple of things, weren't there? There was like a bit of concern about black darting people and whether you can black dart a horse and all this sort of stuff and using your fate. So I must admit, maybe I'm the only one, but I thought that you could already black dart someone's horse and then not be able to resist it. But anyway, that's just me. I wasn't sure either way. So
yeah, I suppose if you don't play with the Witch King or with the Ring Wraith that often, then you probably just haven't encountered it all that often. But either way, I thought generally the FAQ seem all pretty good. I mean, there's a few sensible changes and a few little different changes, but the one that I found quite amusing was the age of men is over. So special rules that affect men, do they affect woman? which was very amusing. But I liked the fact that they had to clarify that yes, it's the race of men, not necessarily the women.
It depends what sort of environment you're playing in, isn't it? Really, I mean, over the next few months, we're not really going to be able to play a lot in that side of things. So I don't think how contentious this FAQ may have been, if it could always get changed by the time we're...
Yeah, I mean, it was very sparse, wasn't it? So I feel like once games actually kick off again, we'll have a bigger one in August or whenever it is, the next one. But it's good to see that they're still focusing on it, and, refining the rules and committing to those February FAQs and August FAQs and all that sort of stuff. So excellent stuff. Right, okay, well, I'm going to dip into the comments a little bit because I know people are saying hello, all that sort of stuff before we get into everything else. We've got Nathan saying, drinking my tea before he opens a bottle of wine. Put a padlock on your wallet in case of the there you go, cup of tea, nice. Washing machine finishes in 4 minutes. All right, okay, exciting start to the evening, Nathan. Gaten says good evening. Top Table Gaming Steve, good evening. Scott Whitefoot, cup of tea made, hobby bits on the table, ready for some progress and motivation. Thanks both. Yes, hopefully we motivate you. What are you building, Scott? Because I love your little profile picture of that gorgeous Radagast model. But yeah, let us know what you're working on. Steve says, solid shelf game from Matt. I approve. Yeah, it is quite an impressive shelf. I mentioned this when we just had a tech thing earlier. I mean, just looking behind you, you've got the blue rule book there in the top left. You've got Lord. Yeah, is there a Smaug up there as well? Oh yeah, the box of Smaug. I see it.
Some stuff, but yeah.
What else can I see? I can see DVDs on the shelf. Are there Lord of the Rings DVDs? I think there might be. Yeah,
down that side.
And you've got a map. And what sort of stuff's in the cabinets behind you?
So,
give us a tour. Sort of. Oh, well, you can. Oh, look at that. This is better than I expected. This is a great tour, everyone. Harad, lovely. Yeah.
And some ring wraiths for the.
Oh, you've even got the Lord of the Rings collector's models at the top there. I remember the magazine series. Is your Gandalf staff broken?
there's a lot that are broken, really.
Because
So
they break so easily.
they are
I
very
remember
fragile.
they are fragile. What other stuff have you got? I see. Are those some buildings in there?
Yes.
Oh, look, the Rohan buildings.
Yeah. So sort of planning to build a bit of Edoras. So I'm
Oh,
working
wow.
with that.
Oh,
So
I'll keep that hidden. Yeah.
cover that. It's a broken broken mummock. Easterling. So
Nice.
these are the what stuff I'm working on at the moment. So I'm working my way through that.
Wow,
They're also in my work in progress at the moment.
Beautiful work. Beautiful work.
Then I've got a ton of orcs and Mordor stuff in this one. Same here. It's an old little Warhammer diorama I made.
Oh,
once.
is that Bretonians?
Yeah, I never got
love
any Warhammer,
Bretonians.
but this was just a thing I made for a competition one time. So, and then I've got my bomber with horn.
Oh,
Oops.
yes, we'll talk about. Oh
Too
my
easy.
God, you didn't break it, anything, did you?
It looks fine.
Tell you what, let's get out of the cupboard because I don't want to be responsible for a conversion smashing onto the floor like a rare
fine.
conversion. I do apologise for causing that. Some drama already.
Got my Grey Company and my Heroes of Helm's Deep up there. I haven't got my display board for my Osgiliath because that's still at Warhammer World. But we can talk about that later.
You're dropping lots of very well-timed teasers. These are all things that we will talk about in depth later on. But thank you very much for showing us the shells and destroying that Bretonian you entered into a competition many years ago.
Yeah. And the long of the short of it is, I've got a lot of stuff painted from when we first started the hobby. So in terms of my current standard of painting, there's not a lot there. So there's a few projects that have like started and not finished, but there's a lot of stuff that I'm still working on. So hence why I'm wanting to stick to projects this year.
Is that like a hobby resolution? I know some people started hobby resolutions and they're doing hobby bingos and all this sort of stuff. Is that your resolution for this year?
Yeah, definitely.
Good idea. Good idea. I've accidentally done the opposite these last 12 months because I've been basically building projects and then starting new armies and I've painted a lot of the stuff that I started, but my Easterlings are sadly sat at the bottom of the cupboard, and they have been since March, and they're spray painted red and then undercoated gold, and then that's it on most of them. I've got about a third of the way painted, but other than that, we're looking good. Anyway, back to the comments. So we got double stream week from Frederick Schultz. Yes, that is correct. I like the socks. This is in reference to Battle Streams in Middle Earth, which will be tomorrow evening with booze and everything. Fred says hello, everyone. Frederick. Harry, better stay out of the BBC archives. That's how old Doctor Who episodes get lost. Don't worry, they're all digitised, so I can't accidentally delete them. Evening all. Looking forward to the stream tonight. Got my beer ready, and I'm working on some new Forge World models that arrived today. Joe, that's very exciting. I need to know what they are. That sounds really cool. Some of the new Forge World models are just amazing, so I'd love to see it. Dunedain says, Matt, can you show off your Halbarad conversion? Yes, he can. We've got some pics for it later on, so we'll be able to see that soon. Finishing off my Mordor, Orcs, and Sam from Battle Stream. So that was a couple of weeks ago now. Excellent, Nathan. And I want to start something else, but I haven't decided yet. Well, what is it? What is it on Battle Streams tomorrow? I can't remember what it would be. Anyway, why don't you start on those, Nathan? You can finish them off tomorrow night. Thomas, hello, everybody. Good evening. Rowan says, evening, working my way through batch painting Numenorians, hoping to kit batch a couple of banners and captains, plus Mount Isildur and Elendil soon. Well, this is the right person to ask about this sort of stuff. Matt, have you ever converted any Numenorian captains or Elendils or anything like that? And have you got any tips, Rowan?
I've not personally converted a Numenorian captain or anything like that. I've done some small models for my when we did the Army of the Living. I did like a little detachment of Numenorian emissary and using Fountain Court Guard rules. But in terms of getting converted for your Numenorian heroes, what I'd recommend is there's a 2-pack of elf cavalry for the Hobbit. I've got the Mirkwood cavalry that are fine cast, and they are fantastic for conversions for heroes. My brothers used them for some Numenorian captains, and because of the long cloak, you can utilize that, and you can also like just chop a Numenorian head off or whatever on and attach it. But Finecast is great to work with conversions, so it's a great model to start off with for mounted heroes.
That's a really, really good tip, because the only conversion things that I've seen of Numenorians usually based on Aragorn LSR model, which is metal, obviously. I mean, you can do a very easy head swap with Elendil, and they're wearing the same armor pretty much. So that's not a bad place to start as well, Rowan. But yeah, that's a really good tip, Mirkwood Cavalry. And actually, I might as well dip into it because I was going to do it at some point.
And for the price, it's really good as well, because you get two. You don't have to burn a whole kit. You can use just two mounted models from a single kit.
Absolutely, yes. Well, there's some pictures which I'll get to in a bit, but I've forgotten to upload all the rest of them. I've got half of the images that I've been prepared, and some of the others. So I'll just get some of them up in a second. But yeah, there's definitely some. I think okay, this is the one. Let me just get it in. Because you clearly use these Finecast images, these Finecast horses a lot for your conversions. Is that what you mean?
Yes, that's exactly the one I was talking about. So this, I used the other one for Theoden, and this one was for Aragorn mounted. So because it's Finecast, like I was saying, it's dead easy to get rid of the old model. Now, obviously, Aragorn didn't need a cloak at Helm's Deep, so I didn't add a cloak to this miniature, but that could be used for another conversion project and put in the bits box. But they're great models, really easy to work with. And so if you wanted to make Elendil out of this, you keep the cloak, maybe rework the chest a little bit, but it does have a metal chest plate anyway, so that could be useful. Just make it look a little less elvish. Head swap and then hand swap. So you could actually do it really quickly and still keep some of the elvish bits, but depends how far you wanted to go with it.
Well, that's really good. I'm literally just in the process of finding this Mirkwood Cavalry, so people know which one it is. But it's because Games Workshop has some sort of copyright laws that it wants to sort out. So it won't let me download it as a normal image for some reason. But anyway, so that's really interesting. I like the tip there, because I've never heard anyone recommend that kind of thing. But it's clearly the way to do it if you're a converting champion. So there you go, Rowan. If anyone has any other questions about converting or about anything really, but Matt is an absolute expert on these sorts of things, so he will be able to answer as many questions hopefully as you're willing to give him. So this is the Mirkwood Cavalry you're referring to, I assume.
Yes.
Is it? Excellent.
Yeah,
there we go. So they're actually really nice models as well. I like the head of the horses. I like the sort of the nose. They're really good. And so
it's really hard to find some. Oh, hello.
Sorry about that. I just dropped out for a second. Sorry, I pressed the back button on my keyboard.
Are you still there?
I am still there. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Excellent. Apologies for that, everyone. I've done it before, and I'll probably end up doing it again. But there you go. It's good to have those initial tips. Let's have a look back in the comments. So we had so that was from Rowan, who said, tips on the Numenorians. But any more questions, drop them in. Julian says, good evening. Scott is saying, I would love to divulge what's on my desk. However, all I can say for now is it's a new display board. Ooh, Scott, that's very nice. Easy. Scott, if you don't know Scott is a regular on the kind of painting scene, and was declared the artisan of Middle-earth last year, or whenever it was allowed in the GBHL.
He won the last Ardicon display board as well.
He did the display, and I believe he's done well at the GTs and things like that as well. Although I don't know which boards were which and which time. But either way, Scott, amazing. I can't wait to see what it is. I hope it's going to be able to be used at a big event some point this year. We'll find out, I'm sure. There you go. Rowan says Mirkwood Cav. And Julian is working on some Wildmen of Dunland. And here you go. What generation shift bases would you recommend for these?
I'd go for the Rolling Plains. They're like the Plains of Rohan, so I would go for something like that if you were looking for that style. I don't think the Dunlanding's ever really, except for if it depends if you're going for a book version of Helm's Deep, where you could potentially put them inside Helm's Deep. But I think Plains of Rolling Plains would be the best ones.
Well, there you go. He's kind of done the hard work for us there, asking that question about bases. Tell us, first of all, what is a generation shift base, and how are you involved?
So I am the sole owner, maker of Generation Shift. It comes from, it was a channel that I was running as like a hobby channel, and then it turned into making some bases, and so the resin detail bases that you can use for sort of a fantasy style army, and I've got 10 different ranges, I think, at the moment, and various amounts of each sort of size. But it's something I've been doing for the past, it's hard to think now, I think back since 2015, I think, in various amounts of time. But I've got a great customer base.
Well, yeah,
I'm very grateful.
I'm trying to think when I first encountered them. I think it was probably in either the SBG magazine or Palantir, which have been going since 2017 or before, maybe. So they've definitely been around a while, and they've become kind of almost synonymous with the SBG range. Although obviously you can use them for anything, but they are specifically designed for Lord of the Rings sort of areas of Middle Earth, I guess, aren't they?
Yeah, it's that sort of fantasy style that's sort of realistic as well at the same time. I just love that aesthetic, and I just felt like there was something missing there.
I've got some somewhere. I was going to get them out, but I can't find them in my drawer.
So it's the aesthetic I like. So it's what I wanted to create, and I was making them for my armies, and I just wanted to help other people out as well with it. And it's something I really enjoy doing.
Yeah, and I must say, when I've been sort of I can't remember when I first got some. I think it was probably at an Ardicon, and I'd thought, I've heard of these guys or whatever. And we got a little free base at one point. I thought, well, now I've got one, I've got to get the rest, which is a clever marketing ploy.
You picked up Forgotten Dungeon first, didn't you?
Yes, I think so. That was it. I think it was because I wanted to match the one I got for free, and I thought, I've got this one, so I'm gonna get the rest to fit. And now you mention it, I've got them right next to me. So these are the, I don't know, you probably won't be able to see these, but these are the Nazgul of Dol Guldur there on the bases with the kind of, you got like sort of metal, the sort of metal cladding on the brickwork and the sort of snaking tendrils of
steel work and bits and pieces.
And there's even a big one somewhere which is tucked away that has got my Necromancer mount on it, but I haven't painted that yet. So and I remember thinking, there you go, look at that. I remember thinking when I first got it, I wonder how hard these are going to be. Are these going to be easy to drill? Can you do magnets with them? How do you attach things? Because I was so used to slotting a thing through a slotter base, and I thought that is easy. And I almost was a bit scared of doing something like this, but I thought because I've got a free one, I might as well give it a go. So how easy are they to work with?
Well, I think the material is very similar to a fine cast material, so they're very easy to drill out and pin models. In terms of the Lord of the Rings range, a lot of the original range came on base rails, so it takes a little bit of work to snip those off and then drill into the model, but usually it's no problem. I mean, I do it with all of my armies, and a lot of people are the same. In terms of resin, it's similar to Forge World, so just give it a wash first with some warm soapy water just to get any of the mold release agent off. But apart from that, they're very similar to fine cast or resin miniatures to work with.
I must say, I was very surprised when I first sort of put my drill into one. I was thinking it was going to be really hard to drill, because I've drilled through something like metals and things, and even other plastics, and sometimes you just feel like you're using that tiny little drill for ages. Yeah. But I was amazed at how soft they are, and yet so hard. It's really weird sort of material there, because it feels so easy to get through for drills. So Nathan says, how easy are they to drill through and magnetize underneath? I don't want to ruin them. That's the answer. They are dead easy. They're so soft. And
you can always use, when you're drilling through, if you're scared of going through the other side, you can get these, just put a bit of tube around your drill bit, and it limits the depth of how far you're going in. So if you want to do it to a certain depth, just do that.
Yeah, I mean, I've just gone through the other side, to be honest. It doesn't seem like it. As long as you don't accidentally glue the thing to the
He was talking about with magnets underneath. Oh
yeah,
base.
Sorry, of course that makes more sense. Yeah,
But,
yeah, of course. If you're going in from the bottom rather than the top, but there you go. So but they are really really interesting. And what are they actually made of? Because I know you said forged with resin, but what kind of resin is it? Is this easy to come across? Is it how easy is it to do for you?
Yeah, it's just a supplier I found on the internet of resin. I get it coloured because they tend to look better. It sounds a bit of a strange thing to do, but if the standard resin would come in a beige colour and it doesn't show the detail quite as well. So in terms of receiving a product, I think colour actually helps its sellability. So I do them out of a grey cast resin, and it's just a supplier I've worked with for most of the time I've been making bases. I originally bought some just off eBay, but now I go to a specific supplier on the internet, and they're great to work with. And the resin that I've experimented with different chemical makeups a little bit, but it's not like I'm doing anything specific. It's just, do I buy this one or buy that one? And it depends on the curing time. It doesn't actually affect the end product, but it's more how workable for me it is. So I've experimented into that.
Interesting you say the grey, that you just chose the grey because it's just a colour that because it does make you think, and because you're used to getting plastics in grey and that sort of thing, it makes you think, this is legit. This is part of the sort of the vibe, isn't it? Yeah, because if it came in pink or green or whatever, you'd be like, what is this? What I'm gonna have to paint, and then you kind of get a bit. But yeah, because it's grey, it makes a difference, even though it shouldn't.
Yeah, and there's it's just the colour of the beige that was there originally. It just looked cheap, and you can buy loads of bases off eBay that are still cast in that because it's dead cheap, and there's no difference really into the finishing product. But it's something about it. Like you said, it looks quality. It looks something different, and I think that's quite important, especially when you're selling something that's a physical product.
Absolutely, and as I mentioned already, if you give these free ones away at tournaments and things like that, and you get one of these free ones, and you think, oh yeah, that looks like a solid product. I mean, like I say, it worked on me. Frederick's just been saying, I think someone asked I can't remember who asked the question about which basis for what, but rolling planes work for everything. Could be Rohan, Pelennor, Mordor, Misty Mountains, Amar, whatever. And I guess that's what's great about your bases, is that although they are kind of aiming at a certain part of Middle Earth, and you can use them pretty much anywhere for anything.
And that's really what I encourage my customers to do, just to make it their own. This is your own hobby. Make what you want of it, really, and I just love seeing what people do with them and all the different styles. Like you were saying, there's some styles that are really versatile. You could paint them like desert plains, and that would work really well. But just I put some paint schemes out on there, but I think I put a little notice saying just make it your own on the paint scheme, because
if you want it to be a pink lava or something, just do it. Exactly. it's yours, isn't it? It's your model. Once you've bought it, it's yours. Well, that's a really good point there, and having the freedom to be able to do those, and the softness, as I mentioned a couple of times now, they're so easy to work with that you could easily scrape something off if you want something to fit in a certain way or whatever, and it's actually relatively easy to do. So I'll put a link to the Generation Shift in I guess it's a Facebook page, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, and that you want, and you send a message to that. I'll put that in the comments in the sort of description below once we're finished. But Duna Dine's asked a question which we'll come back to because we're going to talk about conversions later. Okay. Remind me about that later if I forget about it. Frederick and Nathan are talking about what tastes worse, green stuff or milliput. I don't know. I've never eaten either. Not sure you should.
I think milliput probably.
Probably, yeah.
Green stuff stays together and doesn't come apart. Milliput's a bit more kind of, if you put moisture in it, it starts to come apart. So that would be
something that people use, though, isn't it? Green stuff mixed with milliput for lots of things. You've got milliput there. I've got it in a cup.
I do use it.
Is that what you do for sort of press molding, for example?
Right, yeah. So green stuff is a great material, and milliput's also a great material. Milliput is something I use to sculpt hard surfaces on. So things like the blocks on my bases, or cobblestone, anything like that, I all do out of milliput, just because you can get the sharp edge. And what it tends to be is more of you're not sculpting, you're carving. So you sculpt into the right sort of area, let that cure, and then carve down to the right shape, almost like a chisel out of stone.
Right.
Green
So
stuff.
yeah, go on. I was just going to say, so milliput you let dry and then carve, whereas green stuff you carve before it dries, or sculpt before it dries.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've just got a few different things. So obviously they're the cobblestone courtyard ones, and they're all made of milliput. But my bone boardwalk ones, so you've got wood, you've got cloth texture, you've got things like that. I put a bit more of a mixture of both milliput and green stuff together, because it just works better for making those surfaces. And the more you go towards like the cloth or organic shapes or things like bone or leather, you want to be using more green stuff, because just the material, the way it works, you're pulling something and the rest of the material around it pulls with it, and so you're able to make these kind of flowing shapes and things like that, but depending on what you use with it. So that's a sort of gauge of, if I'm going to do something that is like armor, it's keeping its shape, it's rigid, then I'd go for more milliput. If I go for something cloth or organic, go more green stuff.
Fantastic. That is really interesting. Again, we'll come back to some of this stuff in a bit when we go through your actual sculpt, because I've got I've got an archive of pictures of Matt's conversion work, which we will be going through in great detail in a bit's time. I know we're just touching on things as people ask it, but so I'm literally, hopefully, Matt, you'll be okay with just walking us through sort of how you did some of these things, because we already saw an Aragorn earlier, which is an amazing job, but yeah, hopefully people will get something out of that. So let's just have a quick look. Fred says, use my first free Aragorn base for one of my shagrats, and now have some Wargrider and Dunland stuff. See, it works. It works, the thing. And Nathan says he would love the answer, how easy are they to work with, to be an absolute disaster. Don't buy it. Yeah, I can't see Matt saying that, and I certainly wouldn't either.
Sabotage.
Yeah, to be fair, I wouldn't have got you on if I thought they were crap, would I? Scott says, I have a whole box full of Matt's bases, 10 out of 10 for prices, easy to use, fantastic detail, best on the market for MESPG. If you haven't tried them yet, get some. All right, well, there you go. I've just dropped my pen. Yeah, I'm with that. And Nathan says his daughter is a farty pants. Well, there you go. So apparently his daughter's watching, so we can acknowledge that. Michael, good evening. Bit late, working late, needed to grab dinner. Excellent. Okay, so we've gotten through, caught up with some of the chat stuff at the moment. So with that in mind, let me find some. So I just going to ask you, first of all, this is one of your earliest, if not your first, models you've ever converted. So because I thought it was important to get this one up, because people who see some of your content now will be like, absolutely outstanding, and sort of thought, oh my god, this is insane. Where, how difficult is this? You must have spent years doing it. But I think it's worth showing. This is your first ever model, and this is your conversion, and this is a great conversion, but it's relatively straightforward. It's painted in a young man's style. I'll be honest, but it's that's straightforward.
I think there was Humbrol paints.
Oh, really?
I think so as well. I can't remember.
But this was this was Humbrol beginnings for you.
Yes, very good, very funny.
Thank you. But just walk us through this, because what first inspired you to convert a model? Was it a magazine? Was it just a desire to have an elf captain on a horse? What was it? What started you off on this journey?
Oh, that is a question that I'm not sure I know the answer to now.
Yeah, it's a long time ago, I suppose.
I think it's just that whole thing of wanting to make something unique, wanting to make something that's that wasn't out there at the time. Me and my brother would make ideas of army lists and different things. Like before, I'm not sure whether it was before, but even when Legions of Middle Earth came out with the new profiles in there, that they were going to come out, the catapult, the elven chariot, things like that. But one of those was elven cavalry. So we decided to make some of our own, and and I'm not sure whether this was my first conversion. I think it was one of the first, but there were many other ones that along the road looked even worse than this. If you go to a front-on view, you'll see how wide the hips are on this model, and how unanatomical it is. But it's a start, and it was ambitious. And
well, I have to say, if you hadn't painted it in Humbrol paints, it would look really good. It's actually not, as a first attempt at converting, it looks really good. I mean, it's certainly way better than any of my conversions that I did so early on. But I wanted to contextualize your sort of growth with that one before we got going, because we're going to see some amazing stuff in the next few minutes, and I know you'll be all humble about it, all Humbrol about it. But it's true. Okay, so let's get cracking. Let's go back to Dunedain's question, because Dunedain said something earlier about specifically about Halbarad. So let's ask about this. How long does so long as it doesn't take too much time, don't worry, this is what I'm here for. Would you be able to explain the steps you took to make your Halbarad, Matt? I've been thinking of trying to convert my own, but I'm fairly new to sculpting. I mean, it's all there in the name, isn't it? Dunedain's clearly keen. Yes. Let me just get the photos up. Not them. Not that one. This one. That's not Halbarad, but here we go. Here's your Halbarad. Right. This is Halbarad and the whole of your. I think you're still making more of them, aren't you? But walk us through the steps you did for that Halbarad, because Dunedain's clearly interested, and I think they're absolutely amazing. Every single one of them is different. And they're just gorgeous, and even down to the little you can't see where I'm pointing, but on his he's got like a brooch holding his cloak in place. That looks to me like the star off the top of the banner, and that is an amazing detail. And so just walk me through it. I mean, what did you do to achieve this?
So I think at this point with that photo, I'd made 22 Dunedain and Halbarad, and then I went on the Out of the Frying Pan podcast and sort of taught myself into making the full 30 company. So that's why I ended up making more, but they are all completed and base coated at the moment. But in terms of, I just think Dunedain is so cool. And when you've got such a cool sort of idea or sort of story element behind the Dunedain, I think they deserve their own models each. So when I wanted to make a full army of them, and I'm someone who doesn't like a single model in the army to be the same. That was my opening into this project. And I liked elements of the Halbarad model, the one that came out in the War of the Ring, but I wasn't hugely sold on it.
So that's the base model. So it is actually a Halbarad then, isn't it? It's not. Yes. It's not something else.
Yes.
So it's the
one with horn.
I was just going to say, so he's got like a he's holding the flag, and something else. So that's the base model. So where did you go from there? What did you do? And I don't think you can get this model anymore, can you? By the way,
no, it came out from a made to order.
Yes, it did
not too long ago. So there's a lot more back in the system now, for one thing or another.
Yeah, that's very true.
So they are easier to get on eBay now.
But I'm right in thinking that you've used the banner from that version, and then maybe some of the others from other versions. Is that right?
So I used the head from the original version, and the banner. I'm not sure whether I used the sword from the original version or not as well. I sourced a lot of different swords when creating the Dunedain. So whether that's Metal Faramir Ranger or lots of different ones. I use so many different models.
Because this is the current Halbarad you can get. And so that head looks to me like the same as this head.
It was the running one, the one without banner, actually.
Oh, sorry, is it? Okay, so
yes.
Running head.
Yeah.
Right, I'm with you. So it's still there. So that is still available, but you'd need the rest of it. But either way, so you've converted two Halbarads into one there. But there's clearly a lot more going on, because you've got a horn, you've got you've entirely resculpted the leather armor and the chainmail. I mean, what chopping did you have to do this?
So because it was metal, I ended up using a Dremel to get rid of all everything that I didn't want. I don't know if you can bring up a picture of the original Halbrand with the banner.
Yeah, I'm just getting on that. If you can just carry on talking until I can get it. Go on. I will find it.
I could have just chopped it away with a knife, but that sounded too dangerous to me. So if you can get your hands on a Dremel for converting metal models, they are invaluable. And they do get hot though, so I used gloves while I was doing it. Good for safety as well. Anyway, and some goggles. But yeah, so I Dremeled off all the detail that I wanted. I also, a good part of a conversion is just to see if it will work by positioning. That's the one. So if anyone remembers back to the Green Dragon quizzes that we have at Warhammer World, that round where J. Clare gets up and positions himself into different models and you have to guess which one it is. Literally, a good step of conversions is doing that with yourself, just seeing whether something would work. So you've got this arm from Faramir where it's like that. Can you use that with something that stands like this? And what position would look best with your head? So you're almost playing a bit of acting, just trying to see if it would actually work. So that's one step, because you don't want to finish conversion and figure out that the conversion position doesn't look natural.
Yes. Because there are definitely some models and people criticize some of the sculptors models for having really long arms or really long legs or whatever. But yeah, the last thing you want to do is to make it look like he's got sort of Mr. Tickle arms from the Mr. Men
Yeah,
books.
exactly. So proportions are a massive thing, and I'd say this is probably one of the most difficult things to get right in models, proportions. But you can sort of measure it out by using a bit of plastic. So one side is this, so you kind of picture where the shoulder joint would be, make sure that arm, including the bend. But when an arm's got lots of different layers on, it's harder to kind of figure out where that elbow would be. So it's just about thinking into the conversion a bit more, spending a bit more time on the planning side of things, and when you're doing the conversion, almost making an armature underneath. So that's what I did with the shoulder joint on that model that I converted.
So I mean, on this one, so you've got you've got the running guy on the bottom right there. You've got this guy. Are there any other elements there, or is the rest of it completely sculpted by you?
So I've got a Rohan horn, which I used.
Oh yeah, I can see it there on his waist.
Yeah, I didn't particularly like the horn that came with it. I think it was just a bit too big on the end, and I wanted a bit more detail on it.
It does look a bit big now. You think?
I think the black horn warranted a bit more of more detail going on it. Plus, his hands wrapped around it, so you would have to get rid of all that detail that was around the hand to then resculpt it up. So I wanted to take something that was also fine cast, easy to work with, and then go from that point. Apart from that, I think everything else is either plasticard or green stuff. I've got the model here. Let me just look.
Oh, sorry, I'll have to get rid of the image of them. There we go.
It's all right. I'm looking.
Oh, you've got it right. Yeah. Okay.
I think that's it. Everything else was created. Now on the other models, there's a lot of swapping around and this that. So I used Dolan Moth heads. I used So I used the Mablung and Angbor models, Rohan command set, Blackroot Vale archers, you name it. I just wanted loads of different poses. It
looks like you've got just looking there. You've got some of the original Rangers of the North models, some of the Dunedain models, and then you've got wasn't there a second kind of Ranger of the North kit that was released?
Going from left to right,
Grey Company. Oh yeah, go on. Yeah, let's do that.
We got the Rohan Hornblower. So I used the horn for Halbrand. So that's what's left over for that. Next to him, I've got Mablung, which hasn't been changed that much, just made into a Ranger of the North style model.
But actually, crucially, I mentioned that star already.
Yes.
From the top, so you clearly made a few molds of this star from the top of Halbrand's banner, and just use that as a brooch everywhere. Just again, is that right?
Well, I used the design of the top of the star of the banner, but it was way too big for a brooch, so I had to really sculpt a tiny star, and I sculpted it twice because the first time it was too big, and then made a mold of that because I wasn't going to sculpt 30 little stars.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Yeah, but
part
that's
of that,
sorry, I was
brooch. Sorry.
I was sorry. Yes, there's a slight delay on the line, so apologies. But the just something simple like that detail has really transformed those two forgeable models. Yeah, because yes, you've converted the cloak to make it slightly different, but something simple like that, I guess that's a great tip for people. If you're converting a model and don't want to do a lot to it, just adding one little detail like a star can really transform it straight away.
I mean, things like the hobby bingo are great because one of the boxes is convert a model, and I'm a massive advocate for that. So even just something small, a arm swap or head swap is just it gets you started. It gets you more confident with your hobby ability. And so the things like the star or anything like that tie the whole army together because they've all got the same brooch. Whereas the original ones were slightly different, and then the new style didn't really have a brooch; they just had like a clasp around the cloak. So I wanted to tie those two style models together, and as you can see in front, there's still a lot of different variation in their cloth and what they're wearing. But hopefully, when I paint everything up, I'll use similar colours and also tie it in with those silver brooches.
It's fantastic. Gaetan's asking, do you have any tips for sculpting? Find this part to be most difficult? Yeah, yes. We haven't really started with the basics there. So I know in the interview I did with the Perry twins on the channel, which a lot of you have probably seen, they said use just a basic sculpting tool and a little bit of emollient cream or emotion for green stuff sculpting. But there you go, you got a Vaseline. So let's get back to the basics. What do you do? How do you actually do it? And do you have to wait a certain amount of time before the green stuff is sculptable, or do you whack it straight on? And is there a specific mix? I mean, just walk me through the process, because it is fascinating to people like me who can only really fill a gap.
Well, I'll walk you through my process, but I will caveat that with the fact that do whatever works for you. Sculpting there's no right way of doing it. So it's a medium that is really different to work with, and you just find your sort of level area about where things are working for you. So and I only started using something like this to help with the sculpting further down the line, more in the times when I was doing the Nazgul for the SPG. Before that, I wasn't using that, and this automatically, using a Vaseline or oil, it's so much better than water when you're sculpting. It just will immediately elevate your sculpting because your tools won't drag anymore; they won't stick to the material, and so that's a big step. But in terms of tools, I'd say first thing you do, pick yourself up a set of, like, say, wax sculpting tools on eBay, and also clay shapers. So these are the flexible ones.
Oh yeah.
So a pack of those and a pack of metal ones, but also caveat that with whatever works. A toothpick can work sometimes.
I know I've seen people who sculpt and the Perry twins, some of them that have just a huge like a mug full of like sticks and cocktail sticks and tubes and various different things like that. Just because you never know when you're going to need to poke a hole that's exactly the size of a cocktail stick or whatever it is. Yeah,
and you end up getting a favourite sculpting tool. This is mine. It's got this flat end and it's got this sort of sharp bladed end. But it comes to a nice point as well. And likewise
where did you get those tools from? I have interest.
I got these from eBay about back in 2000 and I'd say round about 8. So I've had them for a long time.
Okay.
And they're the same ones.
So long ago that you probably can't remember exactly what they are.
I have bought a Games Workshop one, but after that, I'm never going to need to buy a new one for the rest of my life. That's the thing. Yeah. In terms of those ones, I might buy something else. So I'm looking at getting those. You can get the ones with little balls on the end in different sizes.
Yeah, another one, sure.
So I'm looking to maybe get some of those soon. and just try them out with different things. But the clay shapers are really good. They're really flexible ones. They're silicon ended. They're really good. So especially for sculpting cloth, anything with natural shapes. So working with green stuff, these are brilliant.
Yeah, I wish I should have prepared myself a bit better, because I should have brought my little tools as well. But I got the army painter ones, and there's 3 in them, and they have like the metal one you were showing a few minutes ago. That they just have, they seem to be fine for everything. So they are really good. And yeah, I guess sometimes the tool is less important than the fact that you can just make sure it's lubricated and greased up and all that sort of stuff. In terms of the actual process, I mean, let's get one of these pictures back up again, because things like cloaks, I find cloaks, they're probably the only thing I can do, but they are difficult. But things like chainmail are really difficult, because the instinct is to just get a sort of blob of green stuff and then poke a load of holes in it. But it's to make it look really good, like you've done. It's a lot more complex than that. Yeah.
So I'm not sure if you can pull up the Aragorn mounted one, because that shows a really good version of the chainmail on one of the sleeves. So
yeah, there is.
I've got a specific tool that I use when I'm making chainmail, and it's just a pointy, curved one. So that's something that comes to a sharp point at the end. So it's almost, you're sculpting the chainmail like cloth first, making sure you've got the right sort of amount of stuff there, and you go in rows, pulling like a bit of material that way, then you swap over, pull a bit of material that way, and it makes these links that end up looking like they're joined together. And whether you go up a sleeve or around a sleeve, it's quite tricky to get the knack of, but it always looks better than poking holes in.
So in this picture here, say you're working on, if we try and imagine we're at the very top of his shoulder as we look at it, you start at the top and then work out towards his hand in a row going down, and then you're sort of pulling down with those ones, and then you go back up, pulling up with the other ones. So then you've got you rather than being holes, it's kind of like a little, I suppose it's a little crescent shape, like a little moon.
Yeah, it's more like pushing in. So I think I just explained that a bit bad, but you push down and slightly drag it forward, and then push down, drag it forward. So over exaggerated, down, forward, down, forward, and then working backwards that way. But that's a technique that I first used on a large troll which had chainmail. So I was working on a big model. So
that's a good tip. I mean, just start on something really big first is a great idea, because then you can you do the detail. But even just practicing, I suppose getting a green stuff's not exactly expensive, is it? But if you put like a little blob of that on the desk or on your work table,
work on a flat surface first is great. When you're working around a sleeve, that's quite tricky, because it starts moving as you go around, and anything with overhangs is always more difficult. So if you can build in a support, whether that's on a cloak or like a pre-structure under the cloak that looks rough, but then you sculpt the top of it. So that's what I did on some of the models.
Sorry, just explain that. So do you do a layer of? So you're making, say, let's get Aragorn's sleeve up again. So you making a sleeve underneath that, like almost like a sausage of an arm or something that looks really not detailed, and then let that dry, and then do the armor over the top. Is that right? Or
yes. So I'm not sure if I did on that version. I know I had the arm going all the way to the top out of green stuff, but I'm not sure I did a sort of sleeved version underneath the chainmail. But on large cloaks, whether you're doing it's hard sometimes to do a full sweep out of a single bit of green stuff. So you make the structure first, then you do the cover over the top, whether that's cutting it down to size first, because underneath it can look as rough as anything, but if the structure's there for the final conversion, then it works really well.
So specifically for this one, is that like a pin that you've pinned so there's like a hand and then a pin perhaps, and then like a sausage of green stuff around that, which you then let dry, then you put the chainmail on.
Okay. And one of the most important things to work with sculpting is working layers, and just you can't do everything at once, and don't try and do everything at once. It takes about half an hour to an hour to dry. So work in layers, do a bit at a time, think of it like cloth, like stuff you'd put on. So if you've got chainmail over the top of a bit of cloth that sticks out the bottom, you do the cloth first, then you do the chainmail, then you do the straps, letting each layer dry first, or cure first. And that's the main thing. And to be honest, if a layer goes wrong and doesn't look good, you can always take it off. That's the end.
Yeah, that is true. You can just clip it off, can't you? Just that we've got quite a few questions coming in. Just if anyone notices the connection being unstable, I'm being told that my connection is unstable this evening, or it might be Matt. I don't know. So just let me know if it's dipping out or anything like that, and just drop a comment in. But I'm on Ethernet and I'm on Virgin thing, so it should be like 100 and something megabytes, gigabytes a second, or whatever it is. And so just let me know if there's any issues with that. And I don't know what I can do about it, but I'll nudge the girlfriend to fiddle with the cables or something like that. Okay, let's just go, because a few people coming, lots of different questions. Justin says, hello there, I'm glad I'm not missing this. Thanks, Justin. I'm glad I'm involved, because this is really interesting to hear Matt's sculpting techniques. Drop your questions in if you have one. Frederick's continuing his answers to what tips you have. Use different tools for textures. Yes, so that's exactly what we were saying. Various different tubes and sculpting tools and all that sort of stuff. Nathan says, how useful is liquid green stuff when sculpting? I don't know whether you could sculpt much with it, because it'd take long to dry, wouldn't it? But yeah, you're the expert.
Yes, so liquid green stuff is more like a thick paint than a thin sculpting material. It doesn't work anything like that. You can use it for texture on models. If you want to give like a different mottled texture, you can sort of stipple it onto something, or fill gaps, but I would not use it for any kind of sculpting. It's just too liquidy to work with.
Okay. All right. Frederick says, Nathan, from my experience, not made for sculpting. It works to paint onto a surface to give more texture. That's exactly what you just said. It sounds like Frederick knows the stuff as well. I think it was developed to fix fine cast air bubbles. Yeah, I think it's to fill very thin gaps, isn't it? So, yeah, that makes sense. It might not even be green stuff. That's a good question. No mixing of two components of it, etc.
It's not an epoxy. So
yeah. How do you clean the edges of green stuff sculpts, specifically things like Aragorn's belt, the end of a tunic, or braces?
Okay, so don't be afraid to get the knife out after sculpting something. If you want to trim up an edge, sometimes you can think that, oh, you can't go back and then cut anything after using green stuff once it's cured, but you can sort of shave off an edge or trim it once something's cured to sharpen something up. But all I'd say is, over time you'll get used to the material, and working with green stuff, if you try and do everything in the first 10 minutes, you're not going to get sharp edges. If you work with it until it's sort of cured, and so wait 20 minutes sometimes, and then do a bit more work on it, you're going to sharpen those edges up more and more and more until it's obviously completely cured and you can't do anything with it. And at that point, you can either file it or you're happy with it. And like I was saying with the milliput, you can sometimes add a bit of milliput in, and that will help to get more sharper edges on things that are sharp edged.
So I guess having a tiny a mixture of a ratio of certain, maybe half and half milliput, half and half green stuff, or something like that, and that can help make those edges sharp and make those things easier to sculpt.
Yeah. So on my wooden plank bases, I used a mix of both, and you were able to get the natural texture of wood, but the sharp texture of planks at the same time.
For this one, Dunedain mentions specifically things like Aragorn's belt, and so you can see in the belt there's something dangling off. That looks just like green stuff to me, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, it is, and sometimes you can sort of brace. So work with two sculpting tools sometimes. So if you have something that's dangling in midair, you sort of holding that underneath it, and then you're working that on the top. So sometimes you have to get like a little clamp or an armature to work with on the desk, so you're not got three hands trying to hold the model. But that can sometimes work to get you're flattening something on a surface rather than trying to do it in midair. And other times on a belt, sculpt it before. So it's got on a bit of plastic with some Vaseline underneath, and then transfer it to the model, and then you've automatically got that sharp edge, and then work with it while it's curing, but transfer it across after about 20 minutes of working with it on the plastic.
Right, I see. So you can actually do the hard work on a flat surface and then just whack it on there once it's done.
Especially
almost
for
done.
things like straps. Straps are great to work with on a bit of plastic. Then you literally use a X-Acto knife or a sharp blade, and you're cutting it into strips of leather, really. And then you're transferring those to the model. And usually there's not a lot of detail that needs to be held within a strap. So it doesn't need to be reworked a lot on the model after.
Yeah, I suppose the only thing you want to leave it long enough so that it's hard, so that when you scrape it off that bit of plastic, that it doesn't sort of start stretching and looking like spaghetti.
Yeah, I usually make them a lot longer than you need, because you can peel it off, and it doesn't matter if you ruin one end, because if you made it too long, you can use that as the bit you're putting on. So cut it too long, and peel it off from one side. Then you don't have to try and scrape off. You're peeling it off, so you don't then deform any of your sculpt.
Oh, fantastic. Well, there you go. Hopefully that helps, Dunedain. And feel free to throw in more questions. Frederick says, video for Harry's not ideal. Video quality from Matt seems good. Maybe it's me, Harry. Well, that's really strange. I've just done a speed test, and it says I'm on 108 megabytes download and 5 mega upload. So I don't know what's going on there. But apologies. Hopefully it should have fixed it by now. Louise is downstairs watching Love Island, and she's kind of obsessed with watching the old. She'd never watched it in previous series, and then she decided she wanted to have a go. And she's literally, I think there's like 50 episodes of it in a series. It's insane.
Oh, wow.
And she's watching it all at once. So she's watching that. So maybe that's to do with it. Maybe the internet's just crying,
choking up the bandwidth.
Yeah. Well, it should be all right. I mean, like I say, I've got Virgin, so it should be all right. But anyway, video seems better now, apparently. Frederick says, I've used liquid green stuff on plastic rocks like the Fellbeast base to get more texture on there. Yeah, there are some bases that have got kind of sculpted rocks in them, haven't they, already? Like like the Fellbeast one or stuff. That's good. Well worth thinking about. Okay, well let's go back to those Dunedain, because I know Dunedain asked specific questions about them earlier, and I think you were working your way through talking through some of the models. We got very sidetracked there, but these, as you mentioned, they're already. There's a Rohan banner, Hornblower. There's Magblung and someone else. Is that another part of a Rohan kit? Is that a Rohan captain of some sort at the back?
Number 4.
Yeah, 4 along.
Yeah. That's a Rohan banner bearer. And then in front of him is the Halbarad on foot version.
And you're just using it as a normal Dunedain because you've got a Halbarad with a banner, or is it just
that's
a different
that's
Halbarad?
actually, yeah, so if I don't want to use the banner, I've just made a version without the banner.
Nice.
And as I already chopped up the one without a banner on foot, and I had this model, but I didn't quite like the pose, so I wanted to add the horn in one hand with the strap. And that was an example of a strap which I sculpted off the model first and then transferred once it was cured or curing.
And that's a really nice, because you've actually gone to the effort of putting the buckle in there and the sort of, I wouldn't know, I don't know what to call it, but when you've got a belt and you kind of slide it through, there's
clasp.
A little, there's like a little extra ring as well, and you've got the whole. I mean, the detail. I mean, you might not be able to. If my internet's a bit bad, you might not be able to see these pictures in great quality. But everything is really locked in there. And in fact, I've already put your Generation Shift bases in the group. But I'll share your Hobby Hub page as well, because all these pictures that I've got have been stolen directly from your Generation Shift Hobby Hub. But there's loads of stuff there. But all these, I mean, where do you come up with the ideas from? I mean, there's just so many conversions, and like the guy in the end's got a mustache, and are you
Ron Burgundy?
Is it that sort of stuff? Are you looking at films and thinking, oh, I want to have a Ron Burgundy Ranger then?
It's the variation for me. It's looking what's out there that has most of the features that I need in a model, in a miniature. So Dunedain are known for their cloaks. They're known for their ranger-like armor, swords, bows. And if a model has those features, that's a model that I can adapt to make a Dunedain. So in any of the range, sometimes I just scour through both good and evil slots on Games Workshop's homepage for Lord of the Rings, and just scroll through what's got cool features that I could use for this model that I want to make.
Okay.
So don't be sort of held by a faction either. That's what I was saying about the elf horsemen. They're completely not men, but you can use them and convert them into men, really. So it's going through and seeing the features.
Yeah, and I suppose it's if you've seen them on a model, you know it's not impossible for them to be sculpted onto a model, because someone's had to have done it. Maybe there are some things that are impossible, but maybe there aren't. But I guess someone's had to sculpt that at some point, so therefore I can do that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this sort of looking for specific models really comes down to originally when I was doing the SBG magazine, making the 9 Nazgul and then it turned into conversions to almost scratch building them from models that were out there. But I ended up cutting most of the detail off and sculpting my own over the top. But I used what was there originally for the inspiration.
Well, that's a nice segue into the Nazgul. So let's do that. Let's look at the Nazgul. So this is the first one I picked up. And I don't know which one this is meant to be, but walk us through this, because this is a sword that looks, I may be wrong, but it looks like it might be from a fantasy model. Is that right?
No. So, well, it's an element. I got a conversion pack that was, I think it was in Redbox Games, did like a little metal set of swords, but they didn't have those notches in, so I added those.
Oh, right. Okay. Because it reminds me of the Chaos Demons Bloodletter kit, if anyone knows that. They've got the kind of wavy sword at the bottom. But okay, no. So you've got a specific conversion box of bits.
Yeah. So I bent this sort of sword up as well around the hilt and added to it with a little bit of green stuff. But this was actually one that came about from the fact that there was only 6 designs made for the movie, and the guys wanted a full 9 different designs. So I went to the Weta book first, and this is one of the designs in the Chronicles Weta books that I utilised for another ring wraith. Yeah,
so you had to. I mean, what's that? I mean, you can see is that resin feet. So there must be something buried underneath there. Some poor old model. What's the base model here? And I mean, it looks like you've just covered it in green stuff.
Yes, I wasted a lot of money on models. I completely destroyed all the detail off. So this was a Mirkwood elf with spear originally.
Is it easier to base it on a model that's already got everything done, or have you started doing things like building little wire armatures and things like that?
So I've more started doing that now, but at this time I've never done anything like that.
Yeah, because this is a few years ago. This one, isn't it? 4 or 5 years ago.
So yeah. So I used what was there, proportions from things that were there before, and went off those. But I've still not to this point sculpted something from scratch. But these are as far scratch as you can almost get before getting to the actual scratch built something. So.
So what model is this? A Mirkwood spear, did you say?
Mirkwood elf with glaive.
Right. So I'm trying to find. I'm just having a look at the pictures now, and I can't for the life of me work out which one it is. So I'll have to get another
one
image.
Like that.
Oh, hold on. I'm on a different window. Let me just get the pictures up, because I'm just so fascinated at how you've managed to turn this from something that I clearly can't recognise even now. I've got the image up. So.
Exactly.
It's just slowly loading. I mean, it is unrecognisable. I mean, the face and the crown and everything is completely different. But here we go. So which one is it on that picture? Can you?
Oh, I can't see all that picture, but I think it's the middle one with the spear poking upwards.
Middle one with the spear poking up. So you really have changed it quite a lot then, because let me just. So everyone picture that one in the middle. Right. Okay. Yeah. So the arms are in the similar sort of gripping pose, but you've clearly done a lot of.
It's more the legs. Yeah, the legs were the kind of the gait of the legs, which is what I used.
Right. But everything else is pretty much redone, and to see that alongside the rest of the 9. Here's I think this is all of them, isn't it? That's 4. Yeah, 9. Yeah. So I mean, you had to base these somewhat on the movie poses. I know, Tom. These just to so people know, this is from SBG magazine 3. Is it, or is it 4?
Yes, issue 3.
3. So this is SPG Magazine 3. Yeah, I think they came back later, didn't they? So Damien and Tom, who make the magazine, basically asked you to do these, didn't they?
Yeah. So they came to me after the projects. I think I did with so my first tournament was Desolation of Stockport, where I took a Cirith army, and it had lots of different conversions with in the army, and so they approached me on the back of that, and we had this amazing little chat that was going for months and months about their progress, and but yeah, they approached me about some conversions, and then they ended up almost making things from scratch. So it's not yeah.
I mean, these aren't like I mean, this was way before there were Forge World models as well.
Yeah.
So it's worth noting that these are some of them. These are very, very dynamic poses, and people do criticize the Nazgul Forge World ones, despite them being absolutely lovely, for being a little bit static. But these are very, very mobile. They're definitely in that moment when the 9 clash with the White Council. They are kind of in the zone of that fight, aren't they?
Yes.
And is that what you're trying to capture there?
Yeah, I much to watch that scene so many times to kind of make screenshots of this. But yeah, it's I was really proud of it, that when the models from Forge World did come out, I could look at these and then look at the Forge World ones, and they weren't too far off, and I was quite pleased with the end result. Looking back, with this is the project that accelerated my sculpting so much. Just doing something like this, I spent a long time on it, and it just really accelerated the quality of my sculpting.
Now, this is I'm talking about the materials here again, because we mentioned Milliput a couple of times already, and what different materials are going on in here? Because I can see, I mean, if you look at Kamul on the left there, he's got a mace, but that's the Witch King's mace, I think.
Yes.
So there's definitely models underneath there, but also on the same model, you've got a slightly yellower green stuff on his helmet for the horns. There's white material on his shoulders. There's white on his cloak, and then there's green everywhere else. So those four different materials there. What are they all? Are they all just mixes of Milliput and green stuff?
Yeah. So the white is probably just an overexposure of the fine cast, which was underneath, because that model base was what's it called? From the Easterling range, the one with the staff.
Oh, yes, the War Priest.
Yes, that's the War Priest original model, which was chosen for his cloak,
right,
and a sort of Easterling base helmet, which then I completely added to. But yeah, in the helmet there was bits of green stuff and bits of Milliput mixed together to get the sharper edges that I wanted, and the rest of it's just green stuff and the model itself and the metal.
Matthew Dishner says, wow, that is some killer sculpting. Nathan says, my personal opinion is those Nazgul are superior to the Forge World ones. I saw Forge World ones first and loved them, but these have movement and character. So that high praise indeed. And it's hard to disagree with. I mean, these are amazing. But as I say, so you've got the white and the Witch King at the front has yellow, almost a yellow armor. Is that all Milliput then?
Yes, that's completely Milliput, yeah.
So this, and then there are other bits. Is that at the back? There's a on the back right. I can't remember which one's a which. I'm afraid. There's got like a mace type thing.
Yes.
Is that plasticard or something like that you've used for the mace, or is that again more fine cast?
So for the back 3 and the one with the axe in front, I've used plasticard there, and it's a great material to use for swords. I made a little template, cut out some bits on it, and replicated it 4 times for the mace, and just filed it down, cut it down, sharpened the edges, and then sculpted it all together like a cast weapon or a forged weapon. The one across from him was completely made of green of plasticard as well, and same for the axe on the one at the back of the left
Back left, yeah. That I mean, because what I'm people talk about sculpting, impressive sculpting, and I mean just the angle on the guy that we already saw a bit of, but the face is perfect, and the chainmail on the guy to his right, I think it's Slayer of Men, or one of the axes, is outstanding. And but just you've clearly got an ability to be able to work with all these different materials and know which material it is to use in different situations. I mean, I guess you know which ones are good, but I mean, was it before this that you sort of had acquired those skills? You mentioned already the Cirith Ungol stuff. I mean, has it taken you long to get from the stuff we saw earlier from this elf to these guys? Because is that how many years is that? How many conversions have you been through before you get to that? Do you think?
Well, it's interesting actually, because this is the project that was the most when I started to experiment with mixing the materials together. But I had a bit of a break from Lord of the Rings, and me and my brother did 40k for quite a few years, and because the gaming club was more into that sort of side of thing. And then we came back, and over those years I'd used plastic art because I'd like the 40k orcs, and they had a lot of metal plates on them, and so I'd make so many metal plates and things like that. And we did Tyranids as well, so and sculpt like natural materials and flesh and stuff like that. So they're all techniques I learned and then was able to utilize in a better way when I came back into the Lord of the Rings SVG hobby. So it's almost like I've got these two different ages of Middle Earth. It's the original when we got into it, and we had this massive collection. And then after coming back and rediscovering the Lord of the Rings hobby, but in terms of it's actually a good point you mentioned about timeline, because it depends what you want to achieve out of it. Just to mention someone who I've seen come on massively in the past year and a half or so is Justin, who was in the chat tonight. He had not converted a model a few years ago when I saw him at Ardacon, and he mentioned about my conversions, and I just really encouraged him to go for it. And where he's at now, I mean, he's chopping up very expensive models left, right, and centre now, but they're looking great. And just seeing how far he's come in such a short period of time is really encouraging. And I just encourage everyone to give it a try, and don't be disappointed where you're at the start, because you can always do it again. You can always try it again. It's all things you can learn, and techniques and tips like using Vaseline or different materials. They automatically give you a head start from where I was at like years and years ago.
Well, you mentioned cutting up expensive models, so I think that's a nice segue to this one. So this is the start of a bomber. I'm just getting the other images up, but first of all, you wanted a bomber that had a horn, because in there's that great scene in the movie where he toots his horn, and everyone and we all kind of love it because he looks a little bit bomber. Yeah, I mean, it kind of looks ridiculous, and that's great. Brilliant. But it is brilliant, and that's what I love about it. First of all, why did you want to do it? And second of all, how did you start? How did you commit, I suppose, to cutting up? I think these are Forge World models for probably one of the first times you did it, is it? And they're quite expensive, aren't they?
Yeah, these ones are the fine cast.
Okay, they are the fine cast.
So at the time, it was just the £25 Clampacker 3. I mean, considering that now you have to buy them in the £100 and something set of all of them. Yeah,
exactly. That's the thing.
So it was more achievable back then. But so this was for, I think it was Mid Sussex War Gamers did like a competition for Stockport one year, and Sam Page ran that, and he sort of put up some pretty big prizes, and so I used it as an opportunity to make something cool, an individual model that would be a displayable model, and so I saw this scene. I can't remember quite what the process was and to get into this, but it was a cool element of the film, and I wanted to replicate it as well as possible in a little display model. So yeah, so I took it from there. So I replaced the chest piece, which is different than what it is in the film, and so I made more work for myself rather than just using the original model as well.
And so because it looks like you've cut the beard off.
Yeah.
Or I don't know how the model actually is assembled, but you cut the beard off and then re-sculpted all the armor underneath, and then reattached the beard, re-sculpted the joins to the beard, and
you
then
are correct.
Yeah, and then you've had to re-sculpt the entire shoulders and the arm. You've left the wrists there, but you almost wonder what the point is of keeping them there. And then
Anatomy.
And then it turns into this guy, and that is just like it's just insane. And what did you make that out of? Is that just a sort of what's it or something that you've sculpted or something? What is that? Is that because that looks all milliput and card? Is it?
Yeah. So under that is an armature of wire. So I got the bend right around his body, and then it went into like a little, because the end is like I think it's a 7-sided shape at the end. It's not an octagon or hexagon. So I made that out of plastic because I knew I wanted to finish in this shape.
Right.
Because it finishes in like a metal clasp. So yeah, it's a massive ram's horn or whatever creature it is, and it needed to look natural as well. So this is an instance of something I've made from milliput that's actually more of a natural material, but it worked quite well because I wanted to be able to maybe file bits down or cut it or shave it down where I needed to. But yeah.
And then the end product is this guy, and you went out the whole hog with the display base for it and all that, but just the finished model looks amazing. It's just,
thank you. Yeah,
I mean, this is the sort of thing that some hobbyists think, I dream of making something like this. This is insane. And you make, I mean, we've already seen all of your stuff. You make all these regularly. Is your passion, I mean, is the hobby, obviously you play the game and you enter the tournaments and things like that, but is your hobby really just coming up with crazy conversions and you kind of play the game so that you have a way of showing them off or something?
Yeah, it's definitely the hobby side is the sculpting, the creating new things, and also replicating something that you see in the films. That's a big thing for me, because the armor would have been the same as what it came sculpted if I didn't want to replicate what was in the films. So you got that part of it, and just there's always loads of ideas going off in my head, and because of the amount of years I've spent sculpting and experimenting with different materials, you automatically gain like a thought that assurance that you'll be able to do it, or be able to learn from it, or give the project justice. So that's why I'm always trying out new different things, because it's just, there's always new things to learn.
Because it's not impossible, is it? That I think that's what you're trying to get at. Is it? Because it isn't impossible, and none of these things are. It's just the amount of time and effort that goes into those sorts of things. I mean, how long does it take to build a bomber? I mean, is it hours, or is it days, or is it weeks? I mean, how long did it go from looking something like that, although a bit earlier, to being the end product? Was that how long was it?
I think this was a project that I worked over a month when it was. So the project was the competition was announced. I think I had a month before the tournament.
Right.
So I did this in a month from start to finish, but that was back in my uni days. So however much time I spent on it, I'm not sure, but it was a period of a month. But to get when working on one model, my speed's also improved a lot since doing this as well. So you just get used to the material, so you're able to sculpt cloth and cloaks. It's a mix of those two in quicker time periods. So it's, the more you work with the materials, what I'm trying to say, the quicker you'll get with it, the more quality you'll get in the shorter period of time.
Yeah, and I suppose it's one of those things, isn't it? Once you once you gain that initial confidence of going, well, look, I can do something like this one, which was cut the plastic arms up. And sorry, I keep showing this off, and you're probably not all that proud of this one, but
it's my favourite conversion.
Yeah, well, it's a good conversion anyway. But once you've got the confidence, I can cut that off, and I can do this, and I can stick his legs on like that, and then you can maybe, I don't know, do something different. Actually, I do something like what I've done. This is Aragorn. This is a very simple mounted Aragorn conversion. It's a bit wonky. It's a bit dodgy. You can see from the zoomed in image there that the knee isn't quite right, but you can see the general gist there that it's Aragorn, isn't it? I mean,
yeah, definitely. I think you've shown some really good use of miniatures there. You've worked with plastic materials, so they're easier to work with.
Absolutely, yeah.
The Aragorn has that sort of striking pose anyway, so that's good for on horse. And then you've also, you've got the character of what you wanted to achieve, and
I mean,
there's a lot going on there.
I think the scrutiny of the high res picture probably makes it look worse than it does. But yeah, it is the green stuffing isn't great on the thing. But I think once you get, I think that's one step up maybe from your old elf. But then once you get comfortable, like Definitely. You say, with learning stuff like that, thank you. But that's actually Boromir's sword from the plastic Boromir kit. A bit of string, obviously, which looks a bit naff. But the feet I had to redo because I broke the legs and all this sort of stuff. But it's a Rohan. It's just basically a Rohan rider with everything else sculpted on. But it did take a bit of chopping and clipping and all that sort of stuff. But that is, I suppose, the next step up from something like this and then it's not that far to be doing something with something like this. This is your Theoden model, which is mostly the same horse that we've just seen with Aragorn. I think
so it's the other one from that set.
Yeah. And also Theoden's plastic model. I'm intrigued. Why didn't you just use the plastic horse from Theoden's model? Was it something to do with the pose, or?
And also there's the horse is different when he rides out because I think if I'm right, the horse that comes in the set has like leather armor, and in the films, the horse he rides out has leaf mail.
Yes, I suppose actually because if you think the old metal model of Theoden has kind of metal armor, whereas that's leathery in the new one. Oh, interesting. Yeah, so you just thought, well, because of that subtle difference, I'm going to sculpt a new horse.
It's the replicating the movies, and I also painted the horse brown because in the films they use brown horse, even though it's supposed to be snowmane.
Well, there you go. Maybe you got a new horse after that. Who knows?
Exactly.
And you've even gone to the effort of sculpting the plastic, taking the plastic bit off the horse, off Theoden's snowmane in the plastic kit, putting that helmet or whatever you call it, the armor for the head on the front there. So that's lovely. And this leaf armor is really cool because we've already talked about chainmail. How do you do leaf armor? Is that lots of little circles of green stuff? Please tell me it's not, because that looks very difficult to do. That would be very difficult.
So I'll let you into a secret with this one,
good.
which I hadn't told anyone actually.
You see, Entmoot exclusive.
So part of that is actually press molded from one of the sides of Theoden's armor himself on the foot version of Theoden. And then added to that, so the further around you go is actually sculpted leaf mail. So I use part of that. So I could have sculpted all that, but I don't think I could have got it quite as sharp at that time period. But it's another tool to use. You use press molding, bit of blue stuff, something else you can use.
Yeah.
In your conversions.
This is worth noting. This is one of the other materials we haven't touched on yet, blue stuff. Yeah. I recently got a pack of it because I've started molding shields mainly, to be honest. But this is really handy stuff. You just put it in a tub of boiling water and it turns into kind of gooiness, and you can just press things into it, and then suddenly you've got an impression of it. And I guess you can use that for loads of different things. I know some people have tried doing helmets and heads and swords and stuff like that. I find that it's easier for shields, if I'm honest, but you can do anything with it really if you've got enough of blue stuff and you're doing it well enough, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think it's the best material for like making miniatures out of, but it's anything that's flat is great to use with. So whether that's rock surfaces, I sometimes press mold some rocks if I like the texture. that's the rock's got, and I want to add a bit of extra texture to something.
See, I'm a bit old school. I just glue gravel onto my base. Just literally, I go out in the garden and just like look around for little pebbles. But yeah, your method's probably cleaner and gets a more specific finish, I guess.
Yeah, it's just another tool to use if you like using it. If you get on with using it, then use it for your best ability. But sometimes it can be a bit of a hindrance trying to use something that's existing, because trying to get the join to anything you're sculpting can always be tricky. But it's another tool.
Another tool indeed. Excellent. Let's get back into the chat. We've missed a few comments. Where are we? Larry Miller says, he's in, good evening. Most impressive thing is that it's a project Matt actually finished. I think that was in regards to Bomber. And I know Larry gives you some grief about sculpting hundreds of things and not painting many of them. And to be fair, we have seen a lot of unpainted sculptures tonight, haven't we? Although I think a lot of them are painted, to be fair.
They're primed, at least.
Primed, exactly, yes.
We all have our hobby. Like I said before, we make a hobby our own, and part of Larry's hobby is obviously doing stuff like that.
Yeah,
supporting us in that way.
Yeah, no, thanks for the support, Larry. On a more serious note, just dropped in. Has Matt explained how he works out what ratio of green stuff to milliput to use? Interesting seeing all the different shades. Yeah, good question. We did kind of touch on that, Larry. But yeah, go ahead, Matt. What shade? How? I mean, for what sort of ratio do you need to do different things? So let's get that picture of the ring waves up, because that's got all the different shades in.
Yeah, if you're sculpting rock or really hard surfaces, so sharp edges, just use milliput. If you're sculpting, it's a scale. Anything that has more sharp surfaces or armor plates, add a bit more milliput in. If it's cloth, work with green stuff, and then if it's things like wood, wooden planks, it's a hard surface, but it's got some natural texture in there. So mix it both together and just whatever works for you. That's the main point in this, really.
Yeah, but just in terms of the ratio, like, because I'm for say the armor on the I can't remember, is it a Slayer of Men, one with the axe that's the axe is hidden by the Witch King's head, and the armor on him is yellowy green. Is that, say, half and half milliput, or is it
so 1-to-1 sort of?
Yeah,
mix.
It is one wash. Okay.
I wasn't sort of religious with which sort of how much of something I used at the same time, but
no, fair enough. It's just worth knowing so that people don't think, oh, well, I'll just put a huge wad of milliput in, or a tiny wad of green stuff in, because it might not do as much. So there you go, Larry. Hopefully that helps.
The important thing to know is to get the same amount of each of the different parts. So of green stuff, make sure you get the same amount of the yellow and blue, and likewise with the two different parts for the milliput. Otherwise, it won't cure.
Yeah. Sure.
Whatever ratio of a milliput to green stuff you use is up to you, but make sure the sculpting is 1-to-1 for the mixing of each individual part.
And don't make the mistake I did when I was a child and thought that the yellow side of green stuff was the green stuff, and that the blue stuff was to be used for something else, and then attempt to make it with sculpt things with just the yellow side and be very disappointed.
Well, people have asked, is that chess piece just yellow part of green stuff before? And unless you've used the material, then you wouldn't know. But,
that is, yeah, it's worth pointing out, isn't it? Yeah. Interesting. Justin reacting to you being too kind about his stuff. Shucks, he says. He still has much to learn, but any improvement I have had so far is because you're a great teacher. There you go. Not just a sculptor extraordinaire, but a great teacher. Nathan says, what is your best cheap-ass discovery? What do you use that's far cheaper than an official tool or item? This is an intriguing one. So, yeah, have you got a tool that's particularly cheap that you use, or a cocktail stick or something?
An X-Acto blade, just the end of that sometimes to sculpt with, or making your own out of a toothpick or a bit of plasticard, anything like that. You could use anything, literally, to sculpt.
You could use one of these mechanical pencils. They've got great little. You can't really see it's focusing on the wrong thing.
You get a great point.
Great point. There you go, Nathan.
Yes, I'm going to use needles for holes in a belt. Just to poke through because it's so sharp. So
It's just having a knowledge of all the different tools that you can, access from your mum's knitting box and all that sort of stuff, I'd imagine. Okay, Battle Streams in Middle Earth. Hello, that must be Damien. Evening all. Sorry I'm late. I fell asleep during story time, bless you. Matt Davies on conversions, eh? I always like those raves he did for that thing. We've already talked about it, Damien. We've already bigged your magazine up.
Old news.
Stop trying to get another mention in. No, welcome along. I'm looking forward to tomorrow's stream as well. Battle Streams in Middle Earth tomorrow night. Nathan says the Mounted Aragorn looks good. Just claim he's heroically ignoring a knee injury. He did once break a toe kicking a helmet. This is very true. What else we got? Nathan reacting to Damien. Larry says, I always assume Snowmain must have been stabled somewhere else and not accessible when they rode out. Yeah, you've got to worry where Snowmain was. Maybe he didn't fancy. Maybe Theoden thought, well, this is my final ride out. Maybe if I don't ride Snowmen out, Snowmen will survive. Maybe he was just that good to his horse.
I think there was a thing in shooting that the horse was playing up that day, so they had to use a different horse. I'm pretty sure that was it. I might be just making that up, but I'm sure I read that.
Well, there you go. Maybe that's the reason. Larry makes sense there. Maybe the Oryx didn't hit the horses due to lack of experience. It could be that. Which SBG sculpt do you most think you could have done better on? Okay, well, give it a go, Matt. Are there any sculpts that you think you could do a better job of?
In terms of current ones, have you got the picture of Legolas mounted that I've put up recently?
Oh, yes. I don't think we've shown that one off, have we?
There's a part of this which I'd like to redo, but it's painted, so it's... I think I've got the proportions on the shoulder to the arm, on the sword raised arm, a bit out. So I think his arm's a little bit too high for the joint. So being really nitpicky, that's what I'd like to redo again.
I think that is being very nitpicky. And also, I'm not quite sure it's what Nathan was asking. I think Nathan means which stuff from the range, the existing GW range, do you think you could sculpt better than they have? If that makes sense. So are there any models in the range you think are crap and you could do a better job on?
Well, the sculpting team at the moment has done an incredible job of the recent releases, so I don't think I could match up to those. So,
I think that's a fair answer, but there are some that are a bit dodgy. What about like Black Numenorians, something like that? You could probably do better than that.
Yes, yeah.
They're a bit flat.
Could be better. Yes, especially the Mouth of Sauron.
Yeah, Mouth of Sauron's a bit flat
on horse.
He just looks a bit silly, doesn't he? I must say, I would quite like it if you were to do a number of ruffian sculpts. I don't know whether you saw this. I'm doing 150 or so ruffians. So yeah, it'd be nice to have some different ruffians.
I've got 6 in there.
6? Oh, 6. Well, there you go. I've got actually. Wait, hold on. I'll reach to the side because this is quite a sight. That's my pile of ruffians to do. Yeah, I've actually got. Oh, they're almost tumbling off the desk. So that's an amazing collection of ruffians. I've got some painted, which are sadly out of reach. Though I'll give you a teaser at the end of the video. But yeah, I've got Russell's ones. These are sent by Jason. There's some sent by Skylar in America. There's some sent by Rowan, who's in the chat. So thanks, Rowan. Nathan, who's been asking questions all night, he sent some. So this is my ruffian challenge that I'm going to paint all of these ruffians for these people and send them back.
It's a monumental project.
It's monumental indeed. Yeah. There's Gaetan, there's Brian, there's another Brian, and there's a Darren as well. So yeah, I'm very excited about doing these. They are really actually quite nice models, though. They're very easy to paint. But yeah, it would be nice to have some extra poses to say the least, especially because some of the models, they're basically the same pose but with like a club instead of an axe or a whip instead of an axe and stuff like that. But anyway,
it's actually a good thing to talk about with the in terms of alternate models that you could use for ruffians. Would be
okay, go on.
Looking at the Survivors of Lake Town models, and as they have quite rough clothes, and there's some obviously with the helmets that you perhaps would need to change, but there's a lot of really interesting models in that range that you could easily utilize for ruffians.
I definitely could. I could do some converting, couldn't I? And realistically, I should do some converting, but they're metal models. I'd like that. It's just I don't know. It worries me that I'd ruin it. But so these are some of the I've got painted. These aren't special ones, but they're like it's the same pose, isn't it? It's exactly the same base model. But
I mean, your project's all about painting up other people's as well, isn't it? So
exactly, yeah.
But if anyone else wants to convert any, that's a good model.
I think, yeah, you're right. The whole point of it is so that everyone can have some ruffians that are a bit different painted at the end. But and also it'd be kind of cheating if I didn't do that. The whole point was that they're one of the least varied poses in the game. So
and if you want to get an army finished in a certain amount of time, I think converting adds an extra 2 times onto that, especially for an entire army.
Yeah, something like 150 or so. I think it's going to be slightly under 150 models. Yeah, yes. Adding any time is not something I want to do. But let's get back to the point at hand.
Yes.
You'll see more ruffian content at the end of the video. I'll have a bit of a teaser.
I'm slowing you down like Steve in the chat.
Exactly. Yeah, I'll just fly through the chat. Dinadine says, "What's the best way to get rid of fingerprints and the like for soft surfaces like cloth or leather?" I'm guessing use some kind of lubrication, and you could like rub it off while it's still curing. Is that right?
Oh,
Excuse me.
You're a professional already.
I don't know. That sounded like the wrong kind of profession. It's sort of a nighttime profession if you're lubing up and rubbing off. But
we'll steer away from that, Harry.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's about your tools you use, and it's the silicone ones with the Vaseline that'll easily get rid of it on those sort of surfaces. But I've done it so many times. You finish sculpting something, then you put your thumb in it. Something you spent half an hour working on, and then you have to fix it quickly before it cures. But
so that would be really annoying. So Dinadine, I'm guessing if you're using your fingers to do any sculpting, I can't imagine what you would be doing. But I guess you can just use them to lick the end and rub it off a bit.
Yeah, if a cloak's coming to a point.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm childish, so childish.
Sometimes I pinch it, like to pull it up with my fingers, and then I'd sort out the edges after. Yeah. And so I guess there are occasions where you would do it to get the basic shape first.
Absolutely. Great question, though, Dinadine.
Yes.
Damien says, I missed the Wraith cart? Chat. I'll have to catch up on stream. Matt's Dark Marshal is, in my humble opinion, one of the best models in the whole range. Let's just... which one's the Dark Marshal?
It's the one... Oh.
Well, I mean, if I was to choose a best one in this, I like the one on the far left and the one on the bottom right. Although the one at the back is pretty good. The back right. There's 3, I think, that are my faves out of those, and that would be the one on the far left, the top right, not the axe one, and then the bottom right, the Harad one. But yeah, I mean, we're quibbling between
the one with the sword. The one with the sword at the back was a design that I had to make from scratch because I used 2 of the designs from the Weta book. And after that, there was still one to design because the Witch King was duplicated. So that's one I came up from scratch.
But I mean, if you want, you're flicking through the magazine now. You can hear it, and if you want to have a more detailed look and appraisal of those things,
the one with the axe.
Okay. Which one was? Okay. Oh yeah, he's lovely. Yeah, he is lovely. Where is he? He is. Yeah, he's actually hiding, but the axe is hiding, isn't it? Yes. Brilliant though. Yeah, I agree, Damien. I mean, they're all really good. I think everyone probably who's looking at it now has their favourite of those 9. What's your favourite, Matt? Which one do you think is your favourite of these?
I think it's the far back left, the one with the double-headed axe.
Yeah, that is a cool axe.
It's just the cloak. It was one of those cloaks that I just finished. I'm like, yes, this has worked well. And
what I like about that one is you can tell the wind is very definitely coming from the left, and it looks very clear. And actually, I'd imagine if you twist, say, the Camul around a little bit, that he looks like he'd be flowing in the wind from the same direction as well. So did you think about that sort of thing? Was there a specific order in which they should all be placed for the wind to all fit in, or was it less thought out than that?
I'll see if I can get there. 1 second.
Here we go. Raiding the cupboard. I'll just quickly fly through the chat. Justin says you're bang on about Theoden's horse acting up on the day of shooting. I remember that from the special features. Yes, Matt, you were right about Theoden's horse.
Super.
So while you're still flicking through, I'll just Nathan says, nice paraphrasing, Harry. Very political answer. Okay. What is this? Oh, this is the Weta book, is it? Yeah.
So this book was used so much, this page has come out. So that one there.
Oh yeah, lovely. It's cool. It's a cool model. It's a cool design, isn't it?
Yeah, and I really wanted to utilize that, and that was also the cloak that I put a sculpture underneath the cloak first. So that's where I used a structure underneath. I didn't sculpt that cloak from scratch because it would be too flowy. And I think flow is a really good thing to think about when you're sculpting a model as well, because there's a lot of criticism in some models is when the cloak's going that way, but then the other cloth is going that way. And unless they're in a tornado, that wouldn't happen. So
yeah, exactly.
Thinking about it in terms of that.
So for these guys, they're very definitely traveling in the forward direction. So I guess you've got to think about that. Although actually the cloak on that one, you didn't have to sculpt. I don't think you sculpted any of these cloaks.
Yeah,
but
all the way through the Dunedain, there's a lot of cloth work, and there's a lot of thinking about direction of flow of wind.
Fabulous, lovely stuff to think about. The flow of wind. Okay, cool. Let's. So
very technical.
Yeah. No, but if you started using technical stuff, we'd all get completely lost. So I'm glad you're keeping it sensible for us. And Stephen Bobby says, "Welcome to the stream, Stephen. I haven't seen your name pop up yet, so thanks for joining in. For fingerprints, you can try Tamiya liquid cement to smooth it out. Yeah, I guess some kind of plastic glue would kind of sort of melt the surface a bit of any kind of plasticky thing, so you could smooth it down with that. I don't know if you've ever done that, Matt, but
no, I don't think it would work on epoxy.
Would it not? Okay.
No, it doesn't melt. And you could always use liquid green stuff and sculpt over if it's already cured, or even just file it down.
Fair enough. Pookliwoo, again, a cool name, says, sorry if this has already been discussed, but have you ever used brown stuff? Not being dirty, it's an actual product from Green Stuff World. I've never heard of it. Do you know what it is? Is it just another kind of resin?
Yes, it's very similar to, I think it's a little bit more like green stuff, but with a bit of milliput in. I think there's loads of different ones. You've got grey stuff, you've got all the different colour stuff.
Yeah.
But they all are similar. But I've never used it personally myself.
Because technically the what was it called? Milliput and green stuff are both kinds of epoxy resin, but you use them for slightly different things. So I guess brown stuff might be something similar to, say, a milliput. But I guess the answer, Pookliwoo, is to get some brown stuff, give it a go.
Have a go.
And see what happens.
I personally like the picture and like the look of a model that's had green stuff on, I think, over the different colours. Like the work in progress photos. So even that's just a silly little thing to think about, but I actually prefer it.
It helps if you never do paint your models, then it's nice because it looks very different. So you probably should paint your models and then know whether there's green stuff underneath.
It makes me think back to the original like 3-ups that we used to see of the original Lord of the Rings models, and like when the Breaking the Fellowship was released, you saw in that White Dwarf issue a sort of picture of all of them sculpted. I'm sure there was like a photo of the sculpts and stuff like that. I love stuff like that. Works really well.
I think it is fascinating. And when I was at the Perry twins' house doing the filming for the interview, that's on the YouTube channel. If you haven't watched it, check it out. It was amazing seeing all these little in progress things scattered around. I mean, theirs is a proper hobby den, and it's got like green stuff models everywhere. But just seeing I think it was Michael in the end did some or was it Alan? Anyway, one of the twins did some demonstration sculpt, and it was just fascinating watching that progress. And they showed me some of the 3-ups, you call them. They're much bigger. Versions of some of the sort of Napoleonic stuff they've been doing, and they were really, really interesting to look at. So great, and a lot easier to paint, those big ones, I'd imagine. They use some of them for promotional stuff.
Take me a year to paint the model.
Yeah, that's exactly. Lovely. Okay, let's crack on in the comments. Nathan saying 150 entirely unique ruffian posts poses, that probably would be awesome. I'd happily donate towards a project. Thanks, Nathan. You've already donated to this project. I'm not doing that one. Not doing that. It is monumental, moronic, mad, and mental. Thank you.
It's probably
Scott,
something I'd do.
Yeah. Well, I'll challenge you to it next year.
No.
You can do 150. No, fair enough. Scott says, I think you may need an extended lockdown in order to get all those ruffians done in time for Throne of Skulls. Well, I mean, maybe. I'm doing all right. I've got about 20 something painted in the first 2 months. I've actually spent the last week doing other stuff, building terrain, which was designed for a board, basically. More on that later. But yeah, so I think I'll get through them. I think I'll actually do it. Larry says, spending ages converting metal models that only cost 5 points fast sounds far too painful for me. Yeah, that's a good point. I use ruffians and Rohan warriors with all the armor scraped off to get more poses for my 42 wild men of Dunnan. Lots of green stuff on there.
Great.
Well, Frederick has said, has been commenting a lot with various different tips for sculpting, so I'm guessing they look really good. I'd love to see those Wild Men of Dunland, Frederick. If you saw this link in the Facebook group to watch this, or if you're just watching on YouTube or whatever, do comment on the YouTube. The link on my YouTube post, on my Facebook post. God, I can't get the words out. If you've got any pictures of what you're doing, feel free to drop them in there, and I'll have a swing through, and we can show them up if you want to show off. I'll get them done later on.
He's done some great conversions of some Urukai recently, Frederick. It's fantastic.
Oh, I'd love to see him.
Mordor Urukai.
Wow, yeah.
Well, it's back in 2020 though.
You know what, Matt? I've got a bone to pick with you because I've used some of your YouTube tutorials of your Mordor Urukai to convert my own. Which
I never finished them.
Yeah, you never finished the tutorial series. I was waiting for the next one, and well, I was watching this many years later. So I looked at it. I was like, oh no, there's no third one or fourth one or whatever it was. So I got some of the stuff done, and then and that was it. But they were very, very good tutorials. So I was desperate for the next one. But I'm trying to find where my Mordor Urukai are now. They're hiding somewhere. They're probably in a box because I had them at a tournament many moons ago, and it's they're still in the box probably. Anyway, yeah. So that's my bone done. Bone picked done. As memory serves, he's the guy with the massive axe beckoning hand. Come at me, bro. Yes, that's of course the Slayer of Man. He also likes the Tainted, which is one with the gas mask, which Matt did base
that's the one
off a piece of most. Yeah, the one that you're just showing. Nathan's got a question. What's the next theme for Generation Shift bases?
So I've promised my loyal customers to do the Gloomy Forest next, and to expand that range from the 120mm oval base. So that's what I'll be working on next, into making the 25mm and the 40mm for those.
There you go. Gloomy Forest is next, Nathan. I've already updated the comments below. So if you want, while you're listening, to have a look at the basing range, do have a look. Generation.
I have been promising them for years, but as this is a year for sticking to projects, let's challenge to do that as well. Yeah,
that's the challenge. All right, there you go. Okay, besides the Dremel, what other tools are good for cutting apart metal models? Any tips? Yeah, this is a good question because you've mentioned a lot in the video so far about using fine cast or plastic models being a lot easier, which obviously it is. Yes. But specifically in these Dunedain that Dunedain is interested in, you're cutting a lot of metal models up, aren't you?
Yes. It depends how many fingers you want to keep. The best thing really is either a hobby saw that is suited for metal use, or some sort of stronger gauge clippers if you want to get some metal detail off. But a Dremel is definitely the best way to go, as you don't have the risk of slipping and catching your fingers or anything like that.
How many injuries have you taken over the last few years with cutting tools?
Next question.
Is your desk more blood than anything else? That's the big question.
Oh dear, yes. It's more like, oh, what have you done again? My wife says.
Yeah. Oh, really? Yeah.
Yes.
Because I mean, I don't do anywhere nearly as complex sculpting as you, and I've cut myself a few times, and
yeah, it's just lack of concentration. You do something silly that you shouldn't have done.
Yeah,
I remember went back early in the hobby when we bought the Two Towers starter set, we didn't have any proper hobby equipment, so we were cutting them with kitchen knives off the sprues. It's the worst thing ever, thinking back. And yes, I think I cut myself twice with that, and sort of had those sort of seeing stars moments back then. So
Yeah,
yes.
I mean, I used to use my kitchen scissors, the mum's kitchen scissors, but which obviously didn't really cut the little bobbles off properly.
No.
But at least it didn't cut my fingers off. But yeah, then my dad gave me a pair of his little clippers because he's an electrician, so he gave me some nice clippers, and they were a little bit better. And I don't think I've ever really scraped mold lines off because I have a fear of cutting myself, and I hate doing mold lines. I'm particularly bad because I cut my knuckle once, and it just bled forever. And I came into my mum's bathroom because she had all the medicine stuff when I was 16, 17, and she was in the bedroom, and I just sort of went, "I've cut myself," and then there was like blood pouring down my hand, and she was like, "Ah!" And then I fainted because I'm bad with that. So and she was shouting, "Mike, my dad," and shouting him down the stairs, going, "Help!" because I was like collapsing on this ceramic floor, and she couldn't hold me up. So it was very amusing. Well, I said looking back, and it probably wasn't at the time, but I've still got a little faint white line on one of my knuckles. You
Oh yes, I've got one in the centre of my hand there.
Oh yeah, you can. That does show up. Yeah,
it's making a tyrannid spore, cutting out with then straight into the hand.
Oh, it makes you shiver, doesn't it? So apologies to anyone who has fainting in the family. All right, okay. So let's move on. So what was that? I can't remember where we were. Oh yeah, so that was Dremels. Oh yeah, the other thing about Dremels you mentioned earlier, sometimes they can overheat. So
yes,
just gloves, I guess, for that if you're going to use a Dremel. Is there any when you say Dremel as well? Dremel is a okay, good shout. Dremel is a brand, isn't it? Are there other brands that are just as good, or would you actually recommend a Dremel specifically?
No, there's a lot out there. There's a lot of things you can use. So anything, a rotary tool.
Yeah,
any kind of rotary tool.
I was just thinking because I've heard people mention Dremel a lot.
Not sponsored.
Yeah, we're not sponsored, but I don't mind it. It's just if they are particularly good, get it. But yeah, there you go. So Frederick says, I think all the stuffs and milliputs are either exactly or almost the same thing, more or less, with more or less filler material. This is why they work together and why a mix is somewhere in between the original components. Goobertown Hobbies did a test where you combined only one part of green stuff and one part milliput, and they reacted. Oh, I've lost the other half of it. It's just jumped. And hardened, like the two parts of green stuff or milliput would do. Oh yeah, that's interesting. Hamish is in. Hello guys. Hello Hamish. Welcome to the Entmoot live. Frederick Schultz says a spear and shield orc in the Patreon chat recently was done by me. Oh yes. Okay, hold on. This is the Patreon chat that for Battle Streams in Middle Earth. So if I have a look into there, I might do that. Get that up at some point, but. It's you see the problem with that chat. I was going to just have a quick stroll and download the image and show it to everyone. There's too much chat. That chat is too popular, so I can't find it.
Too far gone.
Yeah, it's way too far up. Okay, Gloomy Forest. Nathan's excited, but don't pander to her out of the frying pan down. Matthew Beggs is in saying, working on my Isengard army, just wanted to drop in and say I'm enjoying the stream. Thank you. Oh, we've got a frozen Matt. Great. I don't know who's frozen, whether it's me or Matt. It's a great shot for him to freeze on with his thumbs up like that. So I'm just going to screenshot that because that's really cool. I don't know whether you can see me, hear me. Drop a comment in if you have become disconnected, if it's me or if it's Matt, because I won't know until someone drops a comment in. If it's all fudging up, I don't know where my phone is, then I will be back in a second. Hold on a sec. Oh, it's just moved a little bit. Hold on. Drop a comment in. We're reaching. Okay, let's have a look at the YouTube, see if I'm still active. I don't know what's up with my Wi-Fi today, but it doesn't seem to be working. Oh, it's got bloody advert on. I should not monetize these things. All right. There we go. Yeah, okay, it's working. Okay, so Matt's gone. I'll just dip him out for the moment. Okay, well, when he comes back, I might just remove him somehow. Apologies about this. We're having some great chat from Matt. I don't know whether he's back in or not. Oh, is he? He's just popped back in. He's just look. So we can add old Matt, or we can add new Matt. New Matt is there. Hello,
Hey,
you're right.
I'm still here.
Just so you know, Matt, it's stopped in a delightful way for the previous image. I don't know whether you could see it.
Commenting.
It's quite funny. So welcome back, Matt. I don't know whether was it your battery died or something.
Yes.
I thought
no, I'm not sure actually. So.
Oh well, we're back now. And I just had a mild panic for a brief period of time. So sorry, Matthew said he was working his Isengard army. Just want to drop in and say I'm enjoying the stream. Thanks, Matthew. Yeah, I can understand it actually. If you're painting, you don't want to comment necessarily all the time, but if you are just painting, just drop a quick comment in. If you're enjoying it, great. If you have a question, great. But just let me know you're there. It's always nice to hear from you. Okay, from Frederick referring to the BSMI Patreon chat. Yes, I worked that one out, Frederick. Sadly, it's just gone way too high up for me to find it. Hamish says, I've enjoyed listening to you on the Out of the Frying Pan podcast, Matt. It was really interesting listening to behind the scenes of the Magic Gen Shift. I've yet to buy any Gen Shift, says Hamish. Well, maybe tonight's the night, Hamish. Yeah, and if you missed it earlier on, I know you dropped in later on, we have talked a lot about Gen Shift bases as well. So if you just can't get enough Gen Shift discussion, then rewind later on. Personally,
and if you have any questions, like if you ever have any questions in regard to the bases, just send me a message on my page. Happy to answer anything you got.
Yeah, absolutely. Larry says, personally, I always used to use an old, somewhat blunted handleless junior hacksaw blade for cutting. That sounds very dangerous, Larry.
Oh, wow.
Although not done any metal conversions in a long time. Yeah, probably best you don't do any metal conversions. Oh, that's nasty, doesn't it? Actually,
that's terrain.
Looks like one of the ruffian weapons. Larry, I'd recommend not doing any metal conversions with that blade you mentioned. Justin says, you guys reminded me of the time I had to get stitches after an incident with my hobby knife. Ooh, yeah, any kind of cutting, just be really careful. Nathan says, I once super glued my teeth together when chewing the wrong brush. It was fine, but there was an infinite moment of panic that it was permanent. Yeah. Oh God. What? First of all, what chewing super glue on a brush? That seems dangerous.
Super glue used to come with a little brush as well sometimes.
It did.
So whether it was that.
Yeah, Games Workshop did them, didn't they? Yeah, I remember. Yeah. But they did all get eventually once you
it was terrible.
left out, it turned into a clump like a stick.
Terrible.
And then my option for super glue is always the cheapest super glue you can possibly get. I know other people have different opinions, but because no matter what, the bottle will dry up, and if you spend £2 or whatever on 10 super glues, each one will dry up slower, and so you actually get some better usage out of it. But that's just me. I'm sure other super glue is better. But anyway, Hamish says, when I were a lad, I'd use scalpels to clean sprue off plastic kits. I would always end up splitting my thumb open. Yes, we've all been there. God, we're going through the murder stage now. Frederick's still working on Mordor Orc conversions. Excellent. I'd love to see some more. Nathan at Warhammer World, I once fired super glue at my face. Luckily, I missed my eye, Larry says.
I've dropped a pot once and it bounced and it kind of goes everywhere.
Oh, yeah. I know. Not long ago, I did get some super glue in my mouth somehow, and I can't. And it kind of solidified on my tongue, and I was like, "Allah!" It got like a little. It was only a tiny drop, but it's like a little drop, and I ended up doing this all night, just to scrape it off, and eventually it came off. But it was it's horrible. There's a little
teeth.
Yeah, don't. Yeah, Dan says there's a little rotary tool that does the job. There you go.
Yeah, great.
So you don't need to do the Dremel. Dunedain says, we're back to modelling rather than disasters with the weapons. What's the best way to secure the model when using a Dremel to best avoid ruining any detail? Yeah, this is a really good point, because I've seen people with like hobby clamps or like things that plunger to the desks and stuff like that, or just vices. And what have you got? Have you got anything particularly fancy, or do you just hold it in your hand?
Just make sure you've got the right like a desk to work on, but there's no be all way of doing it really. It's
so
just
you don't screw it to the table, or you just hold it in when you
single miniature, or I think what I was doing with the ranges is they were getting quite warm, so I put a glove on there and sort of held it in the sort of base of my hand and sort of clamped it in place, what I wanted to work on. But yeah, using with fingers, usually it's not such a... The tool I use doesn't skip very much. So I was able to hold it in the same sort of place so I don't get my fingers. And if you wear a glove on this hand anyway, you shouldn't have any problems really with that.
Right, I can imagine that the a vice would be useful though if you can, but like you say, you'd have to get it in the right place because the desk for me is down here. So if I'm doing it on the desk, then I'd be hunched over like that. But if you're up here, then I guess it
depends what you're doing. If you're cutting something using the little circular discs, then yes, absolutely clamp it in the desk. What I was using them for was to remove the material, like detail off like the chest plates or something like that.
Fair enough. Not necessarily cutting cutting something.
No, definitely not.
Cool. There's a few comments there about Matt, it being you who's gone. Larry Miller does say it is a good pose though. What else we got? Trying to sort it. Oh yeah, you commented. There you are. Really enjoying it. Working on Faramir, says Damien.
Okay.
Oh, lovely. Frederick's posted some pictures in the comment on the Facebook post. We'll
I saw that. Yeah.
I'll whiz through the chat later on. The comments on the
Fly
thing
through
later.
the chat.
Fly through the chat. We are actually catching up now. Pookly Woo says, I can see you fine. Hamish says, ironically, I'm actually doing some basing, but not with Generation Shift bases. So, Daniel is in saying, painting some Army of the Dead, enjoying the stream thoroughly. Thanks very much. Hamish says, I'm asked about buying some bases before my first ever tournament in 2019, but I'd left it too late and never get back to your reply. Oh no. So he asked you, you replied to him, and then he didn't buy them. Hamish, he's led you on there. Nathan says, I feel like there's a full stream and or podcast dedicated to hilariously hazardous hobby injuries.
It's never too late, Hamish.
Yeah, exactly. Get in touch with them now. And Nathan, I totally agree. There's definitely something in that. Joy Departed, thanks for joining in. Currently restoring a badly painted Gulliver that's missing a left arm. Any advice into modelling a new arm? It's the metal one too, so infinitely more difficult than the resin counterpart. I mean, my recommendation would be buy the resin one. If you're made of money, just buy a new one, and then. But I'm lazy, so Matt, what would you do?
I mean, make a little armature. It depends how sort of far down the sculpting line you are, really. If I would personally make an armature myself and work off the proportions of the other arm on the other side. So you could just pin a paperclip or whatever, and just pin that in, and then bend it into the shape and the length of an arm, and then do a sausage of green stuff around it, I guess, and then little sausages at the end, and then let that dry and then go again. Is that generally? I mean, I've never done this before, but based on what we've talked about, that sounds like what you're talking about. That's exactly what I'd do. Other than that, another sort of unorthodox approach you could do. I mean, there are similar elements in arms, so you could press mold one side, then and get another side, and then reposition the thumb to the opposite side. It depends how detailed you want to be, and then resculpt over the shoulder and different parts. But that's one of those sort of things.
That's a good idea. I mean, and there might also be an arm that you can buy somewhere. I mean, I know that sounds, but you could maybe buy an arm that fits in the same size and then sculpt over it and make it look similar.
Troll arm.
Yeah, that could work. Troll. Yeah. Start on that sort of thing, and then extend it or build it out or something like that. That might, if you're a bit, then you're a bit. You don't have to do as much work on it, I suppose. But thanks for the question, though, Joy Departed. Yeah. Thanks for the question. Larry says, I used to use Poundland stuff, but since they've been closed, I got some from Tesco's. It's more expensive, lasts a lot better. I think that's super glue, is it? And Hamish missed feel that Hamish opportunity there. Oh, missed. That's Hamished. Oh, very good. It takes a bit too long on that one, though, Larry. I feel that's Hamished opportunity. It's very good. I'm sorry, but I couldn't resist. Joy says, as it goes, I converted most of my Moria, but those are so much smaller in scale in comparison. Well, I'm guessing based on that, if you're relatively confident converting, I think what Matt says would be a good idea, doing an armature or something like that.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Nathan's reacting to pun being painful. And he also says, ballpark figure, Matt, 200 unique Roses models for Harry's insane 2022 project. Yeah, no, we're not. I'm not doing that. No way. I'm certainly not getting Matt to do that. That would be mean. Thanks very much, says Joe. Lovely.
And you'll get them in 2025
Yeah.
or 2050, more like.
Absolutely. I wouldn't blame you. Okay, right. Now, there's one more topic I want to talk about in greater detail. We have actually gone a lot longer than I imagined, and that's display boards. But first, I have a question. I have a game that I like to play during these Entmoot live streams. Some of the regulars will know what this game is, and sometimes it causes controversy. But we'll see if it does that this time. I've just dropped my bit of paper that had the answer on it. So essentially, this is I play you a clip, usually from the films, the Lord of the Rings films, and all you have to do is watch this video. So if you've got your painting or whatever, put your brushes down for a sec. It'll literally take a minute. Have a bit of fun with this. Get involved. I play a clip, and you've got to look at the clip in great detail and watch it very carefully. And then I will ask you a random question afterwards, which you don't know about in advance, and you will then answer it afterwards. Here we go. Damon says it's Krypton Factor time. Yes, that's right. Exactly. I need to come up with a name for it, but I just haven't done it yet.
Jingle.
Yeah, I need a jingle. You know what? I could definitely work on a jingle for next time. I'll write a note for myself. Okay, cool. So I will get the clip. So everyone get ready to watch this video. It's actually not from the films this time. It's actually a trailer for the films, which is really cool because it's like one of the first Lord of the Rings trailers, so it's actually quite good retro little bit of fun. So okay, everyone get ready, watch this, and then I will have a question just afterwards. Here we go.
It has been named the greatest and most popular book of the 20th century.
The responsibility of bringing this world to the screen visually is obviously enormous.
It introduced us to the world of fantasy.
The thing about these books and what we're doing with the movie is that they're so real. You believe it really existed.
But it wasn't until now that the legend could finally come to life.
The technology has caught up with the incredible imagination that Tolkien injected into the story of his. And so this is the time.
One ring to rule them all. One ring to find them. One ring to bring them all. And in the darkness, find them. J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah! How awesome is that? I mean,
It's like it came out yesterday.
I know. I want to watch that film so bad, so bad. Okay, so people are already starting to guess what I might be suggesting. So let me just have a look. Oh gosh, someone's got it. Someone's got what I haven't even asked the question yet. So Nathan says, have a bit of fun with this, but get ready to count millions of shades of greens and various different questions. Dan Lear says Nicolas Cage.
Nathan's all out tonight.
Yeah, he is. Here we go. Right, okay, I flashed it up. Okay, so basically, the trailer really sucks, says Nathan. I disagree. So, basically, the question was, some people have already started suggesting it. How many times do we see scenes which are not in the final edition of The Fellowship of the Ring? How many times do we see something? I mean, and actually, we can go through the list I've written down because there may be some others, but I've got a number in my head. So, how many times, Matt, do you think, while everyone's getting guesses, how many times do you think there are things that appear that never actually make it into the films? So, everyone having a good guess. So, we've got time for them to. Here we go. Yeah. Nathan already claiming it as a win because he's guessed what he thinks it is. What do you think, though, Matt? What sort of stuff?
So,
can you think of some things that you saw that definitely didn't come up? That's probably
in that film. So there was scenes from the Two Towers, for sure, in there. So you got Legolas with his blades.
That's true. That is true.
There's a few. I think there was a few from there. There was a few epic sort of back shots that were never in there. I could not give you a number. There was quite a few shots, so I'd say about half of them probably weren't in the film. 60, 18?
Give it 18. Okay, that's your guess. All right, Matt's guess is 18. What's everyone else's guess? We've got this is a good one. Scott says the epic voiceover guy popped up 7 times. That would have been a really good one. I wish I'd done that. Frederick says, oh, that unused goblin footage. Yeah, I know. Talk about Blast from the Past, says Justin. Excellent. The trailer really sucks, says Nathan. 3 shots that don't end up appearing in the movie, says Nathan originally. That's it's very low, very low. To be fair, Damien does make a point. It's for Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy. Yes, I cut the end off. It says Fellowship of the Ring, 2 Towers at the end. But that's just because it takes too long to get through to all that. Here we go. Larry says 12. Very good guess. Joy says Uruk-hai marching from 2 Towers. Yes, that is true. The silhouette shot's not been seen before. Does it?
I think I've gone too high.
Oh, I don't know. Does it count that weird different font Lord of the Rings at the end? No, it does not count that. It was cool, says Nathan. Wild guess 17, 14 we're getting. The Nazgul on Weathertop with swords pointed at the 4 hobbits. Ooh, I think it might be that. I think that shot is used, but it might be a behind the scenes shot of them filming it.
The goblin shot.
Yeah, the goblins were definitely. So okay, I'll we got some loads. Here the numbers come now. So 9, 9, 10, 8. Justin, Dunedain, Michael, Daniel. So my answer, which may well be very wrong, because I can't remember everything, but my answer is, well, I'll read through the things. There's orcs running through the woods. So there's goblins running through the woods. Goblins in Lothlorien twice. I think there's a third time. So that's 4. Uruks walking over the hills. Those are the big background shots that you've got. I think they're just they're CGI shots that they used. I don't think they ever get used. There's 3 of them.
Sort of wide shots.
Yeah, exactly. I think Gandalf. There's a shot of Gandalf that is not from the film. The Fellowship running down the hill, or I think it's Aragorn and a couple of the hobbits running down a hill. That's definitely not in the film. As you quite rightly put, this was the trick question, the Legolas and Aragorn from the 2 Towers. So I've got 15, I think that is. Let me just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Oh no, it's 12. It's 12. Whatever. I must have had. It's 12. 12. There you go. Which for me means someone got it right. Who was it? It was Larry Miller. Well done. Here you go. As a prize. A sip of Ent draft. There you go. Well done. So there you go. That's the interlude. Send your hate to the Facebook page Generation Shift 92 if you think that I'm wrong there. So feel free. But anyway, it's just a bit of fun. But yeah, it's interesting seeing that trailer as well. Okay, so that's the interlude. You can get your paintbrushes back out, and while we talk about the final topic, because we've gone on a bit longer than I expected. I hope I'm not keeping you up too late, Matt.
That's fine.
The final thing was, Larry says, yes, definitely not a complete guess. And the final thing is display boards. So this is something that I think probably have come up a lot more in the last few. I think it seems to be an exclusively Lord of the Rings thing. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but lots and lots more people enter tournaments in the Lord of the Rings with big display boards. And I think maybe it's just because a few people have brought them and then everyone has to up their game. I don't know. But you have been one of those people. And this one is something extraordinary. As you pointed out, it's at Warhammer World at the moment. This just walk me through this. This is your Osgiliath, Pelennor Fields. No, it's not Pelennor Fields because that's just Mummox in the background. This is Osgiliath, isn't it?
Yes.
Just walk me through what inspired you to do this, because it's quite a complex build.
It is, yeah. It's something that I've wanted to do for ages. I think it's probably an extension of the bases, really. It's a super extension of the bases.
Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't love Osgiliath? It's one of my favourite parts of the Lord of the Rings. It's just this city that's sort of war-torn. It's been through so much, but was once the jewel of the Kingdom of Gondor. And it's just bringing that to life as sort of accurately and as detailed as possible. It was something that was a pleasure to do, but I'm quite new to the display board scene myself, so this is actually the only one I've ever done.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know that. I thought that this would have been one of many. But I mean, I mean, you won the sort of best displayed army or whatever it was at Throne of Skulls. Is it just best army? I can't remember what it's called. They've got a special name for it. Or
Yes, I think it was best army.
I know you got
yeah.
some sort of trophy for it. I'm sure I've seen that. But either way, I wanted to just ask specifically about the water effects and the way they kind of blend with everything else.
Yes.
I mean, you're obviously quite a dab hand at resin anyway, because you make loads of things out of them. But how complex is it to do something like this sort of shoreline we're seeing right at the bottom of this picture here with the clear resin, and it's cubed off at the edge. Looks very sharp and nice. How complex is it to do something like that? Because my only experience with resin is pouring it into a river, and that was a very contained thing, and it worked okay, but that was sealed in. How do you do something like this?
When you're doing something like this, it's all in the prep. It's all in the getting ready.
Sure.
And this is a board that I drew out like so many times about how I wanted it to work, and because of my display boards, display cabinets behind, this is actually in two parts, so it made it even more difficult for myself to make. So each of those parts can fit into my cabinet, but yeah, it's all in the prep, all in getting the design that you want, getting everything mapped out. I've got some sketchbooks with like an overlay, an eagle eye view of the board itself, and going from that, it's all about knowing that the clear resin is probably one of the last steps that you're going to do on the board. So you have to get everything painted, everything, all the tufts added, all the little bits of detail painted and in place, ready for the resin pour. And so you basically have to make a barrier of so I use plastic card and stuck it around the edge using hot glue gun because it was easy to peel off after. And you have to make a really good seal so that none leaks through. Now, that didn't quite work for me, so I did have a bit of...
Did it go everywhere?
It wasn't too bad, but it did go on the table I was using and went onto the floor, but I managed to catch it before going up to bed that evening. So I managed to stem the seepage. So I used just packed on a load of old plasticine I had and just trying to stop it. But so that actually added a few more air bubbles than I wanted in one of the sides. But it's all about preparation, making sure the thing is watertight beforehand. You can't really do any tests to make it sure it's watertight, but you just have to be confident in sealing up the edges, gluing extra little bits of stuff on that will end up being peeled off or pulled off. After that, usually when you do something like that, the edges are cloudy still. So you can either you polish the edge up, or what I did is I bought a gloss varnish and sprayed over the top, and it instantly clears up the edge, which was amazing. I had to obviously mask off all the areas that I didn't want glossed. So all the way in front of the buildings, I had to completely mask off the area. But it's amazing how well it brought up that area and how quickly.
I mean, what's that experience like? I mean, because we're looking at this picture now with the tufts and what looks like a flag under the water, and you've got the building obviously, and then the raft that's sort of partly in the water. How do you feel in that instant when you're about to pour this, knowing that if you pour this resin on it and it goes wrong, or I don't know, something happens to it and it goes all a bit dodgy, it's ruined the rest of the thing? How does that moment feel?
I won't lie to you, it's a very stressful time. But it's very rewarding though, because this was done in two pours actually, because to get the rafts floating, I laid these extra blocks for the rafts down on the board itself of the cured resin already, and then poured more over the top to get it so they're submerged slightly. But the board itself, there's so many little details that I wanted to put in. I think because of the time limit, I would have maybe put a few more in, but I didn't want to over clutter. I wanted it to look realistic. Basically, there wouldn't be piles and piles of stuff at the bottom of the shoreline. It would be rubble and occasionally a helmet or something like that. But yeah, so just try to approach it from a realistic point.
And it looks incredible, like you said. The detail is amazing, and it'd be great. I mean, I don't know whether you have, but it'd be great to place like a scenario or two in there, because that just looks like amazing fun. And it matches, and it's handy because there are some bases you can get on the internet that fit perfectly with your design, aren't there?
Yeah, well, actually, interestingly, I wanted the ability to be able to use the buildings in games still. So each of those buildings can come off the board.
Really?
They are inset into the board itself.
Wow.
So it's got the marketplace one, which is the one at the back, and it's got the sort of watchtower at the front. No, at the side to the right, and then it's got the front one and the broken tower. They all can come off, and even the rafts can come off as well. They've got a base which is in the resin, but the top part can come off. So
that's insane. I didn't realize that adds a whole level, so you can actually use them in tournaments or something if you desperately needed to bring some terrain or whatever. That's awesome. And just a few people commenting on. Michael says that's a thing of beauty. The board. Larry says it's disgustingly good. Rowan says that's an Osgiliath wonderful display, and then says wonderful Osgiliath display, which I like. Nathan says that Osgiliath board looks awesome. I'm sure someone will complain it's not been made to allow full movement for mummox, though. Which, yeah, well, they can go shove it, can't they? Dan says, I did a big resin pour over an XPS foam shipwreck, and it melted, smoked, filled the house with toxic fumes. Choose your resin careful. Oh, my God, Dan, that sounds awful. How do we avoid that?
So I did use XPS foam on the board to sort of blend it into the bits of existing Osgiliath terrain, and also I wanted to make full buildings. But I sealed it with what was it called? It's a type of thick PVA. I forgot what it's called. It's down here. Yeah, Mod Podge.
Oh, I've heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've got a standard one of these, and you can also get like a gloss varnish one. And the gloss I actually used for the waves on top with an airbrush as well. So that works really well. But yeah, make sure you seal it. Make sure it's all painted as well before, obviously. So just to clarify, the resin, if it hits the foam, a certain kind of foam that isn't painted properly, will it just melt and set on fire then? Because that sounds like potential for disaster, doesn't it? I did do a test, and this foam and this resin that I used didn't react together. So what I'd probably recommend is do a little test beforehand
that makes sense.
on whatever materials you're going to use for a model. So stick a bit of balsa wood, all different types of wood, because some woods can react to some resins as well. I think Kev Spector once had a horrendous reaction once to a model that he was working on. So just stick them in a little pot, pour a bit of the resin over, and then you've got no worries that nothing's going to react. So that's what I'd recommend doing first.
Fab. Larry says, do you have to have a good seal, or will any other marine mammals do? I think you need a good seal, right?
Yes, you do.
Very good. It's hard to answer.
An elephant seal.
An elephant seal. All right, there you go. Lovely. Well, I mean, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Before we sort of wrap up, I'm sure there are people out there wanting to hear more, have more questions. So if you do have any more questions about anything that we've seen tonight, or any other questions about converting or anything before we sign off for the evening, do drop them in below. Yeah. Oh, okay. Justin says the firefight in me is saying test outside. Well, there you go. Good idea. Dan says it was the resin giving off heat on curing. Too deep equals too much. Heat equals melty terrain. Oh, I see. So yeah, there you go. That's good. So do it in layers. Is that what you do? More than one layer?
I did just purely for the for something floating in the water, but for the depth I was using, I wouldn't necessarily do. So that's about an inch and a half depth.
Okay.
But I think you're going really deep, then yes, there's a concentrated heat. But it depends. You can get some slow curing resins which don't give as much heat off.
Okay.
But yeah, the main thing is do it in a ventilated area with any of these resins, and mask up and just make sure you're covering yourself in that sort of side.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, whenever you're doing any of this kind of stuff, it's always worth doing that. Being cautious with melted plastics, isn't it?
Yes.
Oh yeah, Damien knows which you're talking about. Kev Lawrence had completely finished painting his Golden Demon entry Troll Brute and Gundabad Troll custom sculpted by Dave, fighting in the water. The resin pour ruined the whole thing. God. Absolutely heartbreaking. Yeah, I can imagine that must be awful to go through all that, and especially if it's a Golden Demon entry. That imagine Kev. Yeah, God, that must have been awful. The heart goes out to him, doesn't it? Matt, can you do any good impressions of Middle Earth characters?
Damien.
Yeah, go on. What's your best one?
Oh, we can all do a Gollum, can't we?
Go on. What's your best Gollum? I'm intrigued.
Oh no!
See the pressure's getting to you, isn't it? Yeah,
the pressure's getting to us.
Hey, that's good. Mine would be a Gandalf. You shall not pass. So it's a bit too fast, actually. I was just wanting to get it over and done with. But anyway, thanks. Hamish also wanted that as well. So excellent. Any other questions? Just briefly, we've got a minute before we wrap up. But Matt, either way, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, and it's been just really interesting seeing some of the pictures and seeing some of the processes in motion. I know Dunedain, who's been watching, must be getting a lot out of it, because I know Dunedain was really keen to watch some stuff. So excellent. Oh, there you go. Dunedain says, I greatly appreciate my answers to questions. They've been very helpful. I'm very looking forward to seeing your Grey Company Force finished up.
If you have any further questions as well, Dunedain, you just let me know, and I'll help you out. I can.
Yeah, absolutely. The Generation Shift page is linked in the thing. I'll just quickly, because I did say I would, I'll just quickly go through just having a look at people's chat. It's on, where is it? It's on tab. Okay, here we go, that one. All right, let's just have a quick look at this, because, sorry, I'll close these chat things so that people can't see anything. So there we go, Stream Whip, here we go, look at that. We got some wine and some chocolate on. We got some orcs on the table for Nathan, excellent. They're looking nice, actually. Are they? Yeah. I think that looks post shade of some sort. Maybe there's been some sort of big wash on it. There's a pan. Oh, I like that, salmon a pan. And then, what's that? What else is that? That's just a setup with some things.
Leaving sandwich.
And then, we've got a Witch King, and is that Glorfindel underneath there as well? And I see a nice Isildur to the bottom left as well, and some eagles and everything. Joe says, green stuffing, the classic mounted Nazgul, which I'm absolutely falling in love with and preparing to attempt the armour of Gondolin on my mounted Glorfindel. Matt's new tips will definitely come in handy for these projects. There you go, excellent. Larry's posted his old hacksaw blade, lovely. And CJ says, could you ask if he'll look at doing other sizes for Gloomy Forest? CJ, you fool. You should have been watching the stream, because you answered that question, unless you're just too late.
Yes, I know him well.
He is on it, I'll say in the comments. There we go. Right, okay. Other than that, well, thank you very much. Let's get rid of this. So, excellent. Right, any more questions? Let's just finish. Oh, yes. Syrian. Wizard, you shall not pass. Syrian. A great extras moment. Justin says, thanks a lot. Great stream. Awesome stream. Great stream. Great stream. Thanks. Thanks very much, Gated. Lovely. And one more. Okay. Sorry, Frederick. I'm sure they're very. I almost want to go to them now. Let me just have a quick gander. Let me have if I can find it. Did you say he said the Entmoot page, didn't he?
Yep.
Because I want to give him a. Sorry, I know you're probably just wanting to go to bed, aren't you? Where is it? Oh, here we go. Is that something? No, I can't. Oh, there's 21 comments. Oh, there's Frederick. Here we are. Okay, yeah, these are well worth looking at. Let's look. Add to stream. Look at that. So that is a really nice green stuff.
Oh yeah, I saw that on
beautiful.
Really good.
Oh, I like that. That's really nice, and I like the texture inside the base, and that's brass rod, isn't it? And some sort of hammer or whatever at the waist. Really, really nice stuff. That's the front of the guy. These are very, very good. Very, very smooth. Very smooth sculpting. I mean, I can't do any of these sort of things, but that's interesting. That's white underneath. Do you think that's a different model originally? I'm not sure whether you can.
No, I think that's still some resin.
Oh, okay. Very nice though. Very nice.
Plastic spear.
Very, very nice. I'll scroll through a few of them. Oh, that looks cool. Oh, look, a Black Numenorian. Very nice.
Oh,
awesome.
Really
well, Frederick, thanks very much for if there's loads and loads of them. So if anyone wants to have a look at those, just head over to the Entmoot Middle Earth Strategy Battle Game podcast Facebook page, and you'll be able to see them all. And that, I think, is that. So thank you very much again, Matt, for coming along. It's been 2.5 hours of absolute pleasure, but I really enjoyed it.
Really
thank
you for having me, Harry.
No, thanks for indulging me and letting me quiz you endlessly about all these various different things. So I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Right, I'll beat you off and I'll sign off, and then we're all sorted. So cheerio, Matt. And Matt is gone, and he did wave before he went. And just as I said before, I just want to quickly tease ahead to some of the content coming up on the rest of the channel, because I mentioned already my big pile of ruffians that I'm working on. That's 5 boxes, and that's another 4 boxes that I'm working on. I've actually painted some already, which we saw earlier on in the stream. But next, I decided, because one of my patrons, Russell, who's committed some ruffians to the cause to build the 1,000 points of ruffians. He has committed a box to the cause, and he asked me to do football hooligans as a painting style. I've asked everyone who's committed ruffians has offered a chance, offered colour schemes if they want them. Some haven't. Some wanted some normal colour schemes, some Middle Earth ones. That's fine, because they're going to keep them in the end. But I want to send them to Throne of Skulls first. But I basically was inspired by the football hooligan idea, and decided I'm going to go down the rabbit hole and do something fun with them. So the last week has been half term. So Louise has been off. I've been off because originally I was going to go to Cardiff, which I couldn't do anymore because of things. And I decided to spend the week building houses and villages for a project that I'm working on, which should be coming up very soon on the channel. So Nathan says, do I have enough ruffians now? I think I do, because Devin in America, the DCHL, has committed an undisclosed number. He said, I will fill the rest of them because I have lots that you can paint. So he says, so I do have enough, I think. So here we go. Here's and I've just seen a comment from Generation Shift himself. Absolute pleasure, guys. Remember, make your hobby your own. Give conversions a go. You will get the bug. Excellent. Great tip. And with that, I shall leave you. Thank you very much for watching. The Entmoot podcast was out earlier in the week. So if you haven't listened to that, check it out. Got 4 amazing people talking about the game in depth. We haven't really talked about the game at all tonight, which is great, because it's all about the hobby tonight, which is awesome. But if you're really into the game, 4 absolute SPG legends have talked through their tips for being a great player. So listen to that. And what else? Yeah, that's it pretty much. There's all the links to support me in the thing below. But in the meantime, I'm going to leave you with this, and then I bid you a very fond farewell until next month. Cheerio. Boo-rum. Fresh from Bev's at the football match, it's the Football Ruffians, scaring Barlam and Butterbur away from the prancing pony. Only one group of individuals can stop them having their way inside the tavern, and that's the group of villagers in the skirmish at Bree. Coming soon on Battle Games in Middle-earth. Subscribe now and don't miss it.